Welcome to the Sunday show. My name is Eric, and I will be your host for the night. And to my, I guess it's my my right, but it's your left. We have Matt Dillahunty. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty well. We won't be long. We'll be doing like a top and bottom thing, and we'll get extra jokes out of it.
Yeah. That would be kind of odd. Like, this is the way the screens are formatted. It could work though. We should just have like a Brady Bunch episode where there's like 9 of us, and Jimmy can just be right in the middle, and just kind of corralling all of us. So folks, welcome. This is a great start to the day. I slept in quite a lot today, and just kind of as evidence of that, as I was reaching over to grab a pen right during the credits when the music was playing, I just spilled all my pens on the carpet. So anyway, I have that nice mess behind me to start with. So we're off to a great start tonight. But yes, this is a Sunday show. This is a live call-in show where we invite theists primarily to call in and tell us about their religion, tell us why they believe in it, and best of all, to justify their belief in it, because we've had many conversations over the years. Matt far more than I have, but I'm starting to get more notches on my belt on this. And we've had so many arguments and reasons for belief, but none of them have really ever convinced us or any other atheists that we've talked to. And we know that this is, religion has persevered over the millennia. We know that it's very convincing to a lot of people. But the question is it justified? And so that's what we want to hear from you theists in the audience. If you want to call in and tell us about what you believe and why, call in on the number below, 720-619-2288, or there's a web link in the description. You can get through the call screener, give us a topic, and then we'll get you in the queue and get you up here to chat with us. And while we're waiting for the calls to populate, in fact, let me click on the host show button so I can see what, lines are clear and open. So call on in and talk to us. And any atheists, any atheists in the audience, if you want to call in as well, you don't get higher priority than the theist, but hey, might get on the show. You can talk to us and ask us a question about, deconversion, or what to do with like your family, or if you have a question or want to talk about it, like an argument you might have heard recently, you're more than welcome to do that as well. I'll pull up the schedule here. Matt, do you have anything you kind of want to announce, or you want to kind of start with, or anything that's been on your mind lately?
Well, I released a couple of videos the other day, and Halloween was a couple of days ago. We had a great time. One of the things that Arden and I like to do is, and we'll go out and set up a table out there with a big bowl of candy and a couple of like yacht chairs or whatever, and then we'll bring snakes out for hours. Just, hey, let's bring this one out, and it's really fun because you get to watch parents freak out, but kids are typically excited. And part of the reason that we do it is we want them to have some familiarity, have an opportunity to see them, interact with them, know how to handle it correctly. It's not just, I did put cards out yesterday or Halloween for the first time, but it's so much fun. And we work with 20 different species of snakes and like 10 species of lizards. And after running through a couple of, the bigger snakes, I came out and Arden was sitting there holding the snake. And I just said, I'm not going to grab one yet. I'm going to wait until some kid comes up and says, ooh, I love snakes. And then I can say, what's your favorite kind of snake? And then when he says hognose, I'll just run in and get a hognose. And it was what, Arden, 2 minutes later? And that exact thing happened.
Yeah, like he scripted it, like 2 minutes later.
So
Very
yeah, it
nice.
was fun because that kid's like, it's like, oh, I really like hognose, and I was like, hang on a second, and I went in and I got Speedy, who is our albino superconda hognose girl that's going to be breeding here in the spring, and his eyes got huge, and it was so much fun because it's there's a lot of misconceptions about snakes in general. People are like, oh, they're slimy. They're not slimy. I mean, I'm sure there's a snake somewhere that's slimy, but
Hmm.
it feels more like a basketball or something else. It's just, smooth, not slimy.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Snakes are incredibly beautiful creatures, and not at all like kind of what they're depicted in fiction. Um, yeah.
but yeah, I'm
Uh,
getting ready for. So I've got family that's coming down to visit, and then I have friends that are coming down to visit. November is going to be a huge month. We're celebrating Arden's birthday, and um, just hopefully we're getting to a point where I know that we start the Sunday show live at 2:00, and it's always slow for people to. I don't know if y'all are coming out of church right now, or if you're just waking up after time changes, or maybe the time changes got it so that you're not expecting us for another hour. That could be an issue as well. But I see folks starting to
yeah,
come in. So yeah, primarily we're looking for theists and people who disagree with us to try to make a case for whatever it is that we might be wrong about or might have missed something about. But at this point, in order to get the ball rolling, if you're an atheist and you got questions for myself or Eric or something about the line or anything like that, now is your chance to get in, because there won't be theists keeping you in a queue for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
hmm and yeah, Matt's a former Baptist. I'm a former Jehovah's Witness. So we have very different perspectives on, I guess, quote unquote, the same religion, even though what Baptists believe and what witnesses believe are actually very different. And that's
Yeah.
can be said for pretty much any flavor of Christianity. You're going to have those core beliefs there, but then you're going to have some wildly different, tertiary beliefs around there. Like it's safe to say probably all Christian denominations revere Jesus in some way. Some might directly worship him. Some might simply say, well, he's a really great guy and he was God's, son, sacrificed his life for us. But then you get some really wild differences between beliefs. And that raises a really good question when you're thinking about it, because if this is a true religion and there's a God, an almighty, all powerful, all loving God backing up this most important message ever for mankind, why was it communicated in such a way that led to what we have today? Literally thousands of denominations, thousands of flavors, some of them at literal war with each other, where we've been killing each other for centuries. I just happened to start. I think I was. Oh yeah, I'm planning a trip to Ireland here in a few months, and so I was like, I'm going to read up a little bit on Irish history. So I was reading a bit about how it was basically a vassal state under Britain, how it broke away and became independent, but then how like Northern Ireland like immediately broke off from Ireland and became part of the UK again, and the Catholic versus Protestant a war there. And it's amazing how this was supposed to be this pure message of hope and a bright future for all of mankind, and yet it was communicated in such a way that led to, like I said, that stuff like that, where Christians were literally killing each other over beliefs that they can't agree upon. Same thing if you go back even further in history with King Henry, and how the broke off from the Catholic Church and started the what was it? It wasn't the Protestant Church. That was Martin Luther, um, Anglican or whatever. But anyway, like these factions just break up and break up and break up and constantly splinter. And now we have 3,500 denominations around the planet. And so anyway, if a Christian can call in and explain to us why that's the case, why an Almighty God would allow that to happen, or why the design made that happen, we would love to hear that, because I've not heard a good explanation of how a God could be behind that and this be the case.
It's wild
Whereas,
because
I'm sorry,
so I
whereas
was
I'll wrap up. Whereas
yeah.
is perfectly explained that this is just mankind made up stuff, and this is just what mankind does. Like, that's a much more sufficient explanation. But anyway, go ahead, Matt.
I would think so. The thing is, you were mentioning I was a Southern Baptist, not just a Baptist, Southern Baptist, but and Eric was a Jehovah's Witness, which means I was a true Christian and Eric was in a cult. Um, And
Yeah.
I'm sure that there are people out there who feel exactly the opposite. And normally when we're doing the show, what we're wanting is for somebody to call in and make a defense for why their beliefs are justified, why we should share those beliefs. And quite often we get kind of generic, oh, something can't come from nothing, so there must have been a something, and that something is God. And then not only is none of that accurate or true, and we can have discussions about it, but it's strange to me that you'll have people who believe what I used to believe, are Southern Baptists or whatever. And instead of defending anything about the specific denomination or doctrine, you get defenses of really generic things like, do you think all of this just happened on its own? Was all of this just no, there has to be some kind of God, as if it doesn't matter which God somebody buys into. So, for example, Eric and I don't believe in any God, but I'm wondering amongst the theists, would we be better off in your particular denomination as atheists who don't believe in any God? We're not worshiping any God. We're not worshiping the wrong God. Or would we be better off as theists worshiping the wrong God? Like not the one you did, or worshiping the right God the wrong way. How do you tell what it is that we're supposed to do and why? I mean, why did you pick the religious doctrine that you've got right now? And, if you were to make a list of the various denominations that you think are correct in the essentials, what are they? How do you group that? Is it just Southern Baptists, just those who are using the King James AV 1611? Is it just a subset of Protestants that are premillennial or postmillennial? Is it Protestants as a whole? Is it just Catholics? Is it Protestants and Catholics? Is it just Christians? Is it anybody involved with any Abrahamic religion, or anybody who buys into any God notion at all? Are all of us on equal footing, except for the godless heathens who are destined for, I don't know, torment or annihilation? Which one?
The way you frame that question too is that theists should ask themselves, why did they pick their denomination, or why do they pick their beliefs? And that question might be even more fundamental for some of them. The question for some should be, did you pick? I certainly didn't. I was born into a Jehovah's Witness religion, and I was indoctrinated, brainwashed from infancy that this was the one and only true religion. All the other religions are false and under the control of Satan. Jehovah is going to take care of all that nonsense here pretty soon. All I got to do is preach and make more Jehovah's Witnesses. And that's the paradigm I operated under for a majority of my life up until my late 20s. And I imagine probably for many others, that's also the case. Their religion is what they happened to grow up in, the family they happen to be born into, the nation they happen to be born into, or the region of the world. And not many stop and say, well, why is that the case? Why did chance bring me into this religion? That's so obviously true, of course. But why did chance put me here? And is just that random chance a good justification for your religion to be true? Is it justified? Is the fact that you're surrounded by people who say it's true justify your belief in it? I would think anybody who's thinking logically about that, would say, actually, well, no, that's not a good reason. The number of people believing something doesn't at all affect whether it's true or not. The region of the world that I was born into has no effect on whether the beliefs that I was born into are true or not. So obviously we need other justifications. And Matt and I, will cut to the chase, Matt and I prefer good argumentation backed up by good evidence, not, good argumentation backed up by no evidence, or bad argumentation backed up by bad evidence. We want both. We want a good reason to believe, and we want the actual material evidence to back it up. And that can take the form of, things that can be, what's good evidence? Good evidence is stuff that can be measured, can be demonstrated to others. It can be repeated. It's in many cases can be tangible, can be shared with others. That's why science is such a powerful institution and process we have in the world. Because when a scientist does something, say in Europe, they can publish a paper, list everything they did, and then a scientist over here in North America can go, I'm going to repeat this experiment and then do it successfully Like that's strong. That's strong evidence. That's strong process. And as far as I know, Christians can't do that. We don't have that type of process. But yeah, would love to hear from Christians on that. And we have a couple callers trickling in, so we'll probably get started here in a moment. If there's no objection, Matt, we'll probably maybe bring in our first one. We have 2 atheists in the queues.
Yep.
So yeah, so Theists, calling in. We'll start with these atheists here, and then we'll hopefully get to you guys. All right, we're going to bring in who is here first. We have Jesse from Finland. Jesse, hello, friend. You're from Finland. Hey. You're an atheist, and you says here that on the topic of the transcendental argument for God, you feel like you don't have a response to it as an atheist.
Correct.
All right. You want to give us some details? It sounds like you've maybe had a conversation or two recently with somebody, and you're figuring out how to respond, or that's just my guess. You want to give some background on that?
It's just, it gets very complicated very quickly when I try to talk to someone about a transcendental argument. It's just in I don't have any intelligent response, and looking into it, trying to find information about it. I just don't. It just doesn't feel like the answer I could give is sufficient enough, or the answer isn't something I entirely understand myself.
Then they've already fooled you, because the arguments don't just shouldn't be in a position where they're merely accepted until you or somebody else counters them. But what are you having the most difficulty with? Because there's a number of different transcendental arguments. Most of them relate directly to logic, but where's the sticking point? Because when I look at all of them, they all seem to be mere assertions that they have a solution to a problem that it appears nobody has a solution to, and may not be a problem.
You're gonna hear me stutter a bit on my words because I'll just gotta but so what I'm having trouble with, I think, is, how do I phrase this? Hold on, I'm gonna need a second to think here. That's okay. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous.
That's fine. Just
no worries.
Think about some version that you've recently, been presented with that you were like, I don't know what to say to this, and we can think about it.
I guess with a version is, I'd say math exists independent of God or something like that. It's a version of that somehow. There's many versions I've heard. It's just I go to a lot of open discussions or platforms that offer open discussions, and so that's one I come across often. And as in math exists independently, but then again I realize the issue, just because something is a transcendental doesn't necessarily mean God.
Well, so I'm not sure that. So what would you say math is?
Math, for me, for what I think math is a language we use to describe things, or how things are numerically, or just it's a description of human language.
Sure. So when we talk about something like math, or maths for my friends in the UK, there's a lot of discussion and debate about whether mathematics are something that are discovered or invented. And I would argue that it's a bit of both, that when we're talking about quantities and the relative comparison of quantities and combination of quantities, those are things that we're discovering as just mere facts about reality, but that the language of mathematics is an invention on our part to describe those interactions. But when it comes to the transcendental arguments for things like logic or math, what they're saying is, what is the reason that 1 + 1 = 2 in base 10 or in any base where for the appropriate values of 1 + = 2? And so if we set aside the language that we're using, what we're doing when we say something 1 plus 1 equals 2 is describing how things interact. Why should
Right.
anyone expect that it's possible for it to not be that way?
That's a fair point.
And if there's no reason to think it could have been any other way, then you don't need some sort of explanation for it, because that's just what is. This is just like a brute fact that if you have one apple and you have somebody hands you a second apple, you now have two apples. And it doesn't matter whether it's uno, dos, 1, 2. The language doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the quantities and saying, but this quantity is, even, and this quantity is odd. Those are things that we do to describe it. What they're trying to say is, why does it work? Why are we able to reliably do mathematics? And that's because mathematics is directly derived from observations about interactions of quantities. Even if there was some reason to think that there has to be some foundation, something that says, yes, math works this way and math always works this way, which I reject that claim. I see no reason to think that there's any grounding required. But even if there were, I don't know how you could get to say, the grounding for this is a God or a being. And you certainly don't get to say, I think there needs to be a grounding for math. I'm going to say that God is the grounding for math. And then I'm going to use the notion that God could be the grounding for math as a proof for the existence of, or the necessity of, a God. And so it's all just assertions. It's, hey, we need an explanation for this and we can't come up with anything. So it has to be something like this, some sort of being. And I don't,
Right.
I mean, to me, for most transcendental arguments, my response is, nuh-uh.
I mean, yeah, that's fair.
And Matt brushed upon something there too. So when I look at the transcendental argument for the Christian God, which is usually the form that I encounter it in, I have big issues with the structure of these arguments, because Matt brushed upon that, the fact that it's circular. It's presupposing a God and then setting up these conditions where they're not going to loop back around and prove this God exists. And I think that just kind of breaks the I don't want to say the rules of presuppositions, because I don't think there are like strict rules around it. But presuppositions are something that all of us have to start. Like we all have to have some presupposition in order to get started on our logic and knowledge and reasoning process. And a good presupposition, in my opinion, is one that can be shown to be true in at least one case, not necessarily universally, but in at least one case. You can show, I could show you that the law of non-contradiction is true if I just, pull up this pen and we start talking about this pen. I can show you how this pen is indeed a pen and this pen is not a pen. And there's no middle ground with this pen, so there's excluded middle. I can show you in one case that, okay, this law of logic holds up. I have falsification criteria as well. If it is indeed the fact that non-contradiction is false, I should be able to pull up an example, be able to show an example that, yes, non-contradiction is false in this case. With the presupposition that this Christian God exists, we don't have either of those. It can't be shown to be true in at least one case, because I take that back. I don't want to say it can't be. It has not been demonstrated to be true in at least one case. A God has never been provided to us to actually exist. This is purely reason and philosophy that they're using to try to get people to accept the existence of this God without actually demonstrating it. And then on the flip side of that, with the falsification, how do you falsify such a thing? If you're saying that this God exists, or then how can we look at that and go, okay, if we were wrong about this, how would we know? So my problems, like I said, with the whole argument is structural. It just seems to break the rules, and they know it. They'll when we talk about circularity in the argument, they'll call it virtuously circular, as if, oh well, because we're dealing with my special thing, I can make special rules to get around certain this logical fallacy that I'm obviously dealing with here. So with what Matt said, how it's not backed up by anything and how it's entirely arbitrary that they're setting up these rules and requirements for why the world is the way it is, coupled with the structural flaws of it that I see, I think it's fine to just completely dismiss it until they bring something better to the table. That doesn't stop them though, because I'm tag apologists, presuppositional apologists. There's some, especially the ones you find online, and like the bottom layers of Discord servers and stuff. They're very tenacious and they're very passionate about the arguments, but they don't seem to like accept that, okay, we have these problems with it. They think it's the best thing ever in many cases. So yeah, I think it's safe to ignore until they bring something better to the table. And there's lots of, you can probably watch lots of videos, YouTube videos on it, where people are interacting with presuppositional apologists. Even here on the show, we've had them call in. You can watch, content around that to kind of get, more from both sides on it. But and also here's the last thing I'll say about it too. If an argument is a good argument, it's going to be convincing, and you'll see that this argument will propagate and become popular. Doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It just simply means if it's a good argument, it's a convincing argument, and we don't see that even within the religious community. Most Christian, like mainstream Christian apologists, they know nothing about not next to nothing about the actual apologist, like pushing tag or pushing presuppositionalism, because it's not really taken seriously. Even secular philosophers look at it and go, yeah, this is not convincing at all, because it's the stuff we had mentioned. So even just within the community, it's not really taken all that seriously. We as commentators on religion, and we as I guess you could say debate bros, we tend to kind of look at it and go, yeah, what's this all about? Because we're interested in argumentation and talking about stuff like that. But in the general community, it's not popular. It does not grow because it's just not convincing.
Yeah, no, last little note on here, but then I want to get back to you. I used to joke that no one has ever become a believer in any particular God because of any transcendental argument. Instead, these are things come out that people come up with after they believe to try to justify it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure somebody out there is going to be the exception to my little rule, but basically, yeah, nothing.
Yeah. Generally, I guess best way to put that is it's a cope. it's Christians looking for a good reason to justify what they already believe in it. And I agree with Matt. I've yet to meet somebody who says I was convinced by the argument. I was an atheist and I was convinced. I don't think I've ever bumped into somebody like that. Not that they don't exist, but I've never talked to anybody like that.
Yeah. So, am I allowed to ask any other questions, or is it only one topic per call?
Well, we have one more person in the chat, but go ahead. We'll go ahead and ask your question. It's fine.
What theory of knowledge do you guys subscribe to?
Theory of knowledge.
Theory of knowledge?
Just correspondence theory, cohesion, yeah.
So knowledge is a subset of belief, and so I think you're actually asking about what theory of truth probably we're subscribing to. No, it's fine. It's fine, because knowledge and truth tend to get wrapped up together. To me, truth is that which comports with reality. And I don't know to what extent we have access to the truth. I don't think that we can be absolutely certain about anything. And so there are certain presuppositions that we begin with, like, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle. You would have to assume that logic is true in order to try to prove that it was not true. And within that framework, I think we have good epistemologies that allow us to say, okay, how do I tell the difference between something I experienced and something we experience? How do I tell the difference between something I see versus something we see? This independent verification. And that gets us closer and closer to correctly identifying what is true in reality.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't really have much deep studying in theories of knowledge, or I'm sure Matt has probably done that way more than I have. But I like good, sound, robust epistemology when I'm analyzing things. I want consistency in the way we analyze the world. I don't think the world, one of my presuppositions is that the world day to day is consistent. Nature does not change from day to day. It was the same was today than it was yesterday. And I think that the way we approach and the way we analyze things, the way we come to know what we know should also remain consistent, remain and be structured with rules. And we're constantly refining the way we analyze the world every day with more knowledge, more experience, and honest reflections on what we've done right and what we've done wrong. So whenever I'm like, analyzing what do I know, or what, how do I know it and why do I know it, and justify that, I want that process to be consistent across the board. And that's usually the thing that I harp on when it comes to Christians, is that they tend to exercise two different theories, or I'm sorry, two different epistemologies when it comes to analyzing things. They'll have this one method for 99% of the things they encounter in the world, anything from dealing with their family, or dealing with work, or dealing with, business calls, or people trying to sell stuff to them. But when it comes to their God, their one favorite, most important thing, now all of a sudden that epistemology goes out the window, and they have this special one that comes into play. And I don't think that, and we're probably way off the subject of theory of knowledge at this point, but I look at that and I go, whoa, no, hold on, something's really wrong here. Because if this God's part of reality, then the same rules should apply to this God than it does to just about anything else. So I like to focus on epistemology, and I'm sure that's probably a component of some theories of knowledge, but that's kind of where I look at it, and I don't worry about it much further than that. If I ever do get off my butt and go back to university for a philosophy degree, which has been on my mind because I want to explore this deeper, I'll probably study that more. But until then, I don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, okay, Jesse. I hope you have a good day there in Finland, and thank you for calling.
Thank you for having me on. You guys are really awesome.
Oh, thank you. Catch you
Thanks
later.
so much. I can't ever hear the name Finland without the Monty Python song playing in my head. And what's funny is, I have friends in Finland who weren't familiar with the song, and so it was really fun to kind of introduce them to it. But yeah,
nice. We have a whole song over here about you guys. It's like, oh, really?
Well, they have it in the UK. I mean, I don't think the US should not get credit for Monty Python at all.
US gets credit for everything, even stuff not made in the US. You should know this, Matt.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next caller then. Actually, I'm going to give let's take just a moment. I'm going to pull up the schedule here because I forgot to mention it. And yeah, folks in the audience, if you want more people in the live chat to talk to, more viewers and more callers, the best thing you can do for us is, yes, keep on chatting like you do, but hit that like and subscribe button, especially that thumbs up button, because the more engagement we get at the beginning of these videos, the more the algorithm will show it to others, and the more that we can, the more exposure we'll get, and hopefully get more people in here. So yeah, hit that thumbs up button, and let's get some more people in here. As I mentioned before, this is a live call-in show. This is the Sunday show. This is the first Sunday show of the 2 Sunday show series we have every Sunday. Later on today, for the evening Sunday show, we're going to have Justin Valkai and Justin from Deconstruction Zone. So that's a power duo right there, because Forrest is a very, very articulate and passionate science educator, and Justin is a Christian debater. He has his own TikTok channel called DZ. It's a YouTube channel too. Deconstruction Zone, DZ Debates. He has encyclopedic knowledge of the Old Testament. He reads Hebrew, and he's great to listen to. So I definitely recommend tuning in for that show. That will be on tonight at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then for the rest of the week, tomorrow we have Skeptalk, and that will be with R and Raw, and it looks like Dr. Ben. It's just Ben in the schedule here. I assume that's Dr. Ben. Skeptalk at 6 p.m. Central Time. Okay, cool. Yeah, Dr. Ben. And then on the 4th, we have Chewed Gum, and that'll be with Lissa Lube and Taylor. That'll be also at 6 p.m. Central Time. On the 5th, we have The Hang Up, and that will be with Matt Dillahunty here, along with John Gleason, also known as Godless Engineer. That will also be at 6 p.m. Central Time. TACIS will be on the 6th with Arden Hart and Mephi. I want to say Melfi, but there's no L in there. Arden Hart and Mephi, yes. And that'll be at 2 p.m. Central Time on Thursday. And then on the 7th, we have a Cus I Wanna, and that will be with Seth Andrews and Forrest Valkai. So we have a complete week of shows coming up for you. And we'll make that announcement again later on in the show today. But okay, well, I guess we'll just bring in our next caller then. And after this caller, the queue's open again. So Theists in the audience, please call in. We promise we won't bite unless you do things like defend slavery or atrocities, or I don't know, maybe kind of, avoid questions or lie to us. We don't like that kind of stuff. But if you want to call in and have an honest discussion about your belief, please do so, and we promise we'll be nice. Let's go ahead and bring in our next caller here. We have Jason from California. Jason here is an atheist, and the note here says, big question is what keeps you guys going? I've been a long-time listener, and I'm just fascinated by these conversations, and I'm just curious where it's all leading. So, hello, Jason. How are you doing?
Yeah, hey. Good. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing great. It's a beautiful Sunday, fall Sunday here, so I'm in a really good mood because this is my time of year. So, and I'm also here talking with Matt and you, and talking to hopefully Theists here soon. So yeah, it's a good day for me so far.
I just wanted to let you guys know that it's kind of strange for me because I would declare myself a born atheist. I've never really been able to maintain any religious beliefs whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I found that listening to you guys debate theists is somehow therapeutic for me to deal with what's going on in the outside world politically. And the overlap between MAGA and theism just drives me absolutely crazy. And I don't know why that is. But it gets to the point where I listen to enough of these debates that you guys have, and it's like, where's it headed? You know, what keeps you guys going? And is it even possible to get beyond this as a society or as a species? I feel like there are just cults and religions everywhere driving the narrative, and basically, I would say, causing most of the problems in the world. I'm just curious what your take is.
I mean, yeah, when you look at the way certain things are moving and the trajectory of certain movements in the world, yeah, it can be very disheartening, especially like here in the United States, where we see, conservatism and right-leaning politics and that kind of stuff kind of on the rise. But you look at other metrics from the United States, like religiosity, which is generally on the decline. How the nuns, the NONEs, are growing. That's very heartening. So it's always, whenever you look in the world, it's always kind of like a mix of good and bads. And I mean, I don't see myself up here as someone who's like changing the world or anything like that. I'm just putting my voice out there, getting my thoughts out, and just doing my best to put my little bit of weight up against the ball that's being pushed back and forth and pushing in the direction that I think it should go. So, I mean, the question was like, where do I see this all going? I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. And that's the problem. I think that's probably why it's so comforting sometimes to be a religious, especially Christian, because they know where things are going. They know that God's going to take care of things, or the people they don't like are going to go to hell, or the people they do like are going to go to heaven with them. It's nice having that knowledge or that certainty. But not having that can be very difficult. But I do want to know. I do know that I want to do what I can, when I can, and how I can to try to get the world closer to what I want to see it be. So I know it might not be much of a satisfying answer, but I'm just here to kind of. And on top of that, I enjoy having these conversations. Like they just light up the right parts of my brain. So I'm here for self-fulfillment and also kind of moral obligation. I think I feel that I'm doing good up here, and I have a duty to do good generally in my life. So that's kind of what I'm at and where I do this kind of stuff.
I not only don't know how.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I not only don't know how to not do it, I don't know why everybody isn't doing it. How much worse does the world need to get before people give a fuck?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like none of us can see the future, and who knows, maybe we have a really bright future ahead of us. Maybe, one day just kind of the post-truth era will be over, and people will value what's actually true again and what actually reality is. And maybe we'll loop right back around, and suddenly things will get better, and people will look back and go, hey, we're glad we had these conversations, we're glad we had these arguments. And that would be great. And I would love to see that kind of world. I would love to look back and say, hey, I did the little bit that I could to help bring that about. Or who knows, maybe it doesn't. And at least I can look back and say, I tried. I don't want to look back and have regrets. And I don't want to look back and go, I had opportunities and I missed them because I was either apathetic or I was lazy or anything like that. So yeah, I think that's kind of what keeps me going is like I said, I enjoy doing this, but also I feel like if I don't, I will eventually regret it one way or the other. So that's why we do what we do.
Because I begin to wonder, I guess let me put this in a little context, because growing up, being Generation X and growing up on concepts like Star Trek or things like that, where you kind of science fiction that sort of idealized the future, and it's really interesting to watch how science fiction has gone dystopian in the last few years. It's kind of like it makes it extremely difficult for me to think that we'll ever overcome this element of our population, or this element, our mentality that keeps us stuck in these patterns that are so destructive. Right? It's this kind of yearning for enlightenment as a species is still there. And I guess I just keep holding out hope, waiting for somebody to. I mean, I know people are shaking their faith all the time. I know that it happens intellectually, but it seems like, how do we shake? It's more so even on the political side, which how do we get people beyond the cult mentality or the groupthink or the that's where I'm at. And like I said, it's very strangely soothing to go and listen to you guys debate theists. I don't know why. It just seems that you're relentless in what you do, and it's just, I don't know. It just somehow makes me feel better. Anyway, I'm just commenting on it at this point. But if that's what the part that's discouraging for me is, as a species, are we ever going to outgrow this?
Well, are we more likely to outgrow it if people are actively working to help us outgrow it, or if people throw up their hands and say, well, we're never going to fix this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a feature or a bug, or is it something that can actually be learned as a collective? Yeah, we don't know the true answers to those questions. I'm just sharing my experience and letting you guys know that I'm a fan of the show, and I appreciate that you guys are relentless in your pursuit of truth, because that's what I stand for too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
For sure.
All right, Jason. Well, you have a good day, and yeah, thanks for calling.
Yeah, I appreciate the chat. Thanks, guys. I'll keep watching.
All right, catch you later. I think I can't imagine. I've had such a privileged, cushy life. Like I've had hardships, but I've had first world hardships. I've never gone hungry. I've never been homeless, even though we have lots of that in this country, definitely. But I've always had a very privileged, cushy position in life, and relatively speaking, my life is great compared to many others on the planet. And I make no, I'm not, I know that to be the case. I look back though, and I look at people who have had real hardship and have experienced real hopelessness. I can think of like a majority of Europe during World War II. When cities are bombed out, you don't know where your meal is going to come from. Your home's gone. Your friends are dead. And how those individuals managed to look forward and go, we need to work and hopefully get something better. And it did pay off for Europe. Europe recovered from the war, and Europe is now one of the best places on the planet to live when it comes to society and all that, especially like Scandinavian area, highest happiness factors in the world, highest health factors in the world. And so knowing that just 80 years ago, those people were in such a state, and how they looked forward and they fought and they did whatever they could, and now they're there. I kind of look at that and I go, even though I haven't experienced that type of hardship, we're looking at the world today and going, okay, we're kind of in a similar state, not necessarily with bombed out homes and hunger, but we know that we're kind of in this struggle of ideology and kind of this struggle of, okay, what happens in the future? Who gets priority treatment in the future? Is it going to be all of us as mankind as a whole, or is it just going to be this one set of individuals, this one particular group of people? They're going to have the rights and the power, and then everyone else doesn't. And so looking forward and going, okay, do we fight, and do we do what we can to make sure that doesn't happen, to make sure we get the outcome that we do want? Or do we just sit back and not do anything and call it hopeless, and then that increases the chances of that bad outcome happening? And yeah, like I said, I don't want to eventually be down the road and look back and go, okay, I didn't do what I could have done. and now I see things that I don't like. I want to be a part of a solution. I want to be a part of the process that makes things better. And so probably aversion to regret is probably one of my biggest driving things. But anyway, would like to maybe get more callers in here. Theists, please call in. The lines are now open again. So we've had 2 atheist callers so far. Folks, call on in. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about your God, why you believe, what evidence you have for it. I would love to hear if hypothetical situations where, like, hey, let's say you have a belief and you're wrong about it, and you're actually believing in something false. Do you have a way to find that out? Is there something you could do right now to determine whether you're wrong or not? You'd be surprised how many Christians can't answer that simple question. If you're praying to a God, and how do you know that a God's actually listening to you? And if you're mistaken that a God's listening to you, how would you know? That would be a great thing to ask yourself, and a great thing for us to analyze. So anyway, yeah, calling in. The number's below, 720-619-2288. And until then, Matt and I are going to have to just sit here and just kind of shoot the shit. What do you want to talk about, Matt?
It's inevitable because, I mean, let's be honest. Yes, the time change, the daylight savings time change today may have impacted some people, but
probably
call volume has been declining. I'm going to make an observation that some people are going to disagree with, but there were so many people, like a handful here or there, who were like, Matt's just so angry and Matt doesn't have any patience. And I'm like, motherfucker, I've done this for 20 years. I got more patience than you can imagine. And yes, I'm fucking angry. I don't understand why people aren't angry. But the closer we get to Zen mode me, the fewer people are willing to call in. So, and I'm not bothered by that, because quite frankly, the people who call in just to irritate me, they're not interested in an honest discussion. They're not interested in defending what their beliefs are. And so they're just trolling. And I think we've done a good enough job of essentially getting rid of the trolls, that what we're finding out is how many honest interlocutors are actually willing to call the show. How many people are willing to call in and say, hey, maybe I don't have the best reason, but I'm still convinced, and here's why. And here's why I think you guys should be. Because the reality is, right now, in the United States, it is Sunday, and countless people went to church today. And they all, well, I can't speak for all of them. A good chunk of them are significant believers who derive some value out of this and who think it's true. And yet, whether we're talking about Christians ignoring their obligation under 1 Peter 3:15, whether we're talking about Muslims who don't actually want to engage with non-Muslims at all, even Scientologists, it doesn't matter what it is. These people either do not care enough to try to save somebody else, or they realize that they can't. Somewhere subconsciously, they realize they have been duped. They are not remotely equipped to defend their beliefs. They're not remotely equipped to present an argument or evidence for it. And that, this is why this is the situation we're in, because Eric and I both believed this stuff. And when we realized we didn't have good reasons for those beliefs went away. And I'm wondering how many people out there who are realizing they don't have good reasons for their beliefs, but they cannot make the beliefs go away. Like I mentioned this just in a video just the other day, the number of people who have called in to say, like, I have no idea if a God exists and whether or not it's possible to demonstrate it. But there are people out there who genuinely believe that a God exists and that it is possible to demonstrate it. Those are the people I'd love to have a conversation with. But there are also people who have called in, I kid you not, you can go back and find these clips, and they will say, well, I believe, but nobody knows. It's impossible for anybody to know. It's impossible for anybody to have a reasoned belief on it. And my thing is, I don't know how you know that it's impossible for there to be evidence for God. I don't know what knowledge you have that renders you so confident that there can't be evidence for God. But moreover, what sort of a lunacy are you engaged in where you simultaneously say, I believe this is true, and I believe nobody will ever be able to demonstrate it's true? Well, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you're a sincere believer. I think what you believe in is belief, and that you are going to act as if you believe, because either you think you can fool a God or you think you can fool all the people around you. I'm an atheist because I took Christianity seriously. I took my obligation seriously. I would be, if I was still a believer and had good reasons and knew that I had good reasons, I'd be calling into shows like this every week, over and over, trying to have a better conversation, trying to find a different way to do it, trying to allow the Holy Spirit to work through me to convince a couple of godless heathens with an audience bigger than I would ever have, so that I can do what God wants me to do. That's where I was. And yet I have former friends who were part of my youth group, and current friends, but I mean, friends who were part of my youth group who don't seem to give a rat's ass, don't seem to know what they believe, don't seem to be interested in defending it. And I'm like, why am I the weird one? Why am I the one that took this seriously? Yes, I partied and had fun. I wasn't super, like I had a cape and a super Christian and, aha, here's my Bible and I know it all backwards and forwards. But it was important and it was serious. And I think we're now living in a world where not only do we perhaps not have access to truth, and there's a ton of misinformation, and everything is memes rather than structured thoughts with any value or any kind of cogent content. But we're also dealing with people who either fundamentally know they're full of shit or are so embarrassed at how long they've been full of shit that they're afraid to acknowledge. And they don't. I mean, if you have God on your side, how could you possibly be afraid of a couple of dipshits who don't believe in a God?
Yeah. You mentioned 1 Peter 3:15 earlier about how Christians should always be prepared to give an answer, a reason for their belief. I like pairing that with Mark 13:11, where it tells you that you shouldn't be prepared to give a defense. You should just don't even think ahead about what to say. Just say whatever is given to you at the time, because it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. So
I think you can recognize those.
Yeah, you can take either of those approaches. No worries. You can take either of those approaches. Prepare, don't prepare, it's fine. Call in. Like, God's backing you, right, Theists? Like, if you're a Christian out there and you're listening to us and you're going, no, those atheists are so wrong, call in and correct us. God should give you the words in order to convince us or to convince others in the audience.
That's an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
So 1 Peter 3:15 says to be prepared at all times, give a reason for the faith that's within you. And Mark 13:11 says, when they bring you to trial to deliver you over, don't be anxious beforehand about what you're supposed to say. There are people who could look at those two verses and think that they are contradictory. I'm someone who doesn't think they're contradictory.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering...
You're going to talk about generals and specifics here, right? About when it comes to rules? Is that it?
Possibly. I'm not going to talk about it. I want to find out, is there a Christian who understands both of those verses and wants to explain how they are or aren't in conflict?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. And I'm the same way. I don't see them as in contradiction as well, because mainly with the general and specific types of rule sets. But it is interesting how one scripture tells you to be prepared for everything, but then this other scripture says in particular cases when being pulled to trial, don't worry. And I guess it depends. I guess it depends on your perception of us Christians out there. If you think that we're Matt and I are up here, we're judge, jury, and executioner, then that's fine. Call on in. You're on trial. I mean, your belief's on trial at least, right? Because like, what is a trial? A trial is a claim, an accusation, and then the process to determine whether that claim or accusation is true or not. So the accusation that I guess Matt and I are making, at least that's the one that I make, is I don't think you have a good reason for belief. Christians out there, every single one of you, I don't think any of you have a good reason for your belief. That's my accusation. If I'm wrong about that accusation, I want to know. So it behooves you to call in, give me your evidence, give me your process, change my mind. I'm here honestly asking you to call in and change my mind. Because until somebody does, I am going to continue to operate under the position that you don't have a good reason to believe. I think you have a good reason to believe. I definitely thought I had a good reason to believe back when I was a Christian. But one day, my perception changed of what evidence is, what a good epistemological process is. I learned things, mainly how the rest of mankind, how the rest of human history has dealt with knowledge and how they've dealt with how to learn things. And then I suddenly realized that the beliefs that I had my entire life, the beliefs that I thought were good and justified my entire life, actually weren't. I never had a good reason to believe, and therefore stopped believing. And I think most, if not all, of the Christians are under that same position, and a lot of them just don't realize it. So that's why I want people to call in and have that conversation.
Well, without dipping into politics too much, I mean, I do that on Wednesday. We can do that on whatever shows. There is a precision of thought when it comes to language and the structure of sentences. And without digging into the general specific thing that Eric knows, I was probably getting ready to do on another front. Let me defend Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, and object to something that the left recently did. They made a big deal about Caroline Leavitt saying that the ballroom renovation was Trump's top priority. They're like, the government shut down, all this stuff's going on, and she's saying this is his top priority. That's actually not what she said. Yes, it is, Matt. I listened to it. I heard her say it. You're not paying attention. Caroline was asked if there were other renovations being planned or prepared. And her answer was basically, well, the president's a builder. He likes to do stuff like that. But right now, the ballroom is his top priority. In context, she was saying that's his top priority as far as renovations are concerned. It is patently absurd. It may be that this is his top priority. It may be that he's so out of touch on everything else and so used to being sycophantized and stuff. Maybe it is his top priority. But that's not what the question was, and that's not what the context was. And so instead of misdirecting things and being like, ooh, look, Trump's top priority is the ballroom. Instead, why is the ballroom a priority at all? Why is it that we tear down the east wing of the White House without any sort of oversight or anything else? Why is it that they flat out lied that the building would not be touched? Why is it that there's no approval for this? Why is the funding coming in a seemingly pay-to-play way from supporters who are going to be expecting something of it? Why is it that SNAP benefits are going to be closed down and they're lying about what the Democrats want? There are no undocumented workers that are going to be getting access to these things. This is an absolute... So it's lie after lie after lie after lie. And some stupid motherfuckers on the left decided to not even take the bait, just invent something to be upset about because either they weren't paying attention or they're just so worn out that they're incapable of paying attention. See, I'm an equal opportunity offender. If you're wrong, I don't care if you fucking agree with me or not, you're still wrong. And if you're making bad arguments are bad arguments, whether they come from atheists, leftists, right-leaning folks, Christians, Muslims, whatever. You think a Nazi's never had a good idea? Like, there's no Nazi out there that ever said or did anything good or worthwhile? Of course there are. That's irrelevant to whether they're still fucking Nazis. And so you go after the things that are problematic. But if you're lazy in this is how you give them ammunition. Because now they're like, oh, look at the left. The left's so stupid. They think that the president, who's in the middle of doing this and this and this, you know what? All they did was set up for Caroline Leavitt to come out and say, yes, it's hilarious to me that the left wants to pretend that when I was responding to a question about renovations, that I was stating the only thing Trump cares about is this. Our president is a brilliant man who's an incredible multitasker, and he's managed to stop so many wars and do this and this. And then they could just spin their narrative, and you guys look stupid. Stop doing that, and don't do it with theism either.
Yeah, I believe that process is called nut picking. So you're not nitpicking, you're nut picking. You're basically choosing an example and then propping up that example and magnifying that example as an as what the other side is doing. And even though it's not obviously not representative of the entire group, that doesn't stop anybody from using that as an opportunity to paint the entire group in those colors. And yeah, so while you can't control everyone, folks out there, you don't have to lie. You don't have to do things like that. Like, just stick with the truth. Don't give them more opportunities, more ammunition for stuff like that, because it doesn't help us at all, and just continues the muddy the waters and clouds thing. So yeah, it's a
sure the truth will set you free.
Exactly. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring in our next caller. We have a couple. Well, I have one in the queue, and I think one just dropped out, but we have one in the caller, or one in the queue rather. Let's go ahead and bring in Tom. Tom from Washington. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show. We're both in Washington, so you gotta tell me if you were affected by this recent windstorm. I lost power for a few hours, but anyway, yeah, welcome. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing well. Hello, Matt. Hello, Eric. Hope you can hear me well. We didn't get really a windstorm. I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Just acknowledging you. Go ahead.
We did get a windstorm over here. I'm on the western side of the state. If you're over, like in the Tri-Cities or something, I remember that being tremendously windy. Well.
Yeah. We had that big windstorm last week. Lost power. We had a little bit of windstorm last night or yesterday morning. I lost power. So yeah, that's my life over here. But anyway, your topic here says NOMA, N-O-M-A, NOMA, the non-overlapping magisteria, and the why is the existence of God considered a scientific question. Would you like to elaborate on that topic?
I guess I have to. I wasn't really sure how to put that.
No worries.
It just seems that an awful lot of times, I shouldn't say awful lot of times, usually when one is talking about a deity, there is some sort of element of obviously supernatural, otherwise why you couldn't even call it a deity. And then there's always an out. If you can say, well, then how do you explain this? The answer is, well, God works in mysterious ways. And when dealing with that sort of unconstrained infinity is the way I like to think about it. It seems almost pointless to argue about such things. Yes, there are certain sorts of religious claims that one clearly can just say, well, that just doesn't work. But it seems even what you were talking about earlier with the principle of non-contradiction can simply be overridden by saying, well, God can do that too. Why does God have to make sense?
No.
And we're just little. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, maybe that's enough, or shall I continue?
So we're conflating a couple of different topics here. I'm happy to talk about non-overlapping magisteria, but that has nothing to do with the foundations of logic, and there are no even vaguely respected apologists who think that God can violate logic. God can't make a burrito so hot that he can't eat it. He can't make a rock so heavy he can't lift it. God can't make a square circle. Instead, modern theologians think that logic emanates from God, that God is the foundation of logic. Nobody remotely serious, credentialed, or worth listening to on anything related to this thinks that there's a God that can violate logic. The second you think that, you have removed yourself from all rational discourse, and you might as well check yourself into a loony bin, because you now have no foundation for anything at all. And that's why, matter of fact, most modern theologians don't even hold that God is all powerful, just that God is maximally powerful. We don't know how powerful that is, but however powerful one could be, whatever power is possible, God has all of that. It's a mistake to shrug off everything about apologetics as if it could be defeated by, can God create a burrito so hot he couldn't eat it?
Okay. Firstly, yes. I certainly agree that makes it a little that removes it somewhat from the realm of discussion, which is kind of where Nova comes into this. Stephen Jay Gould, he had a lot to say about it, but one thing that really stuck with me is he said science is not equipped to deal with the supernatural. If you're going to simply say, well, yes.
So, non-overlapping magisteria. Stephen Jay Gould was ridiculously wrong, and he should have stuck with biology and stopped trying to dig in on philosophy and epistemology, because all he did was provide an out. The fact of the matter is, science is a process that uses the best available tools to understand facts about reality. Doesn't matter whether something is ultimately natural or supernatural. What matters is, does it manifest in reality in a detectable way that we have the ability to investigate? Science isn't supreme in its bailiwick of the natural, and religions is supreme in its bailiwick of the supernatural. There is no demonstration that there is anything supernatural. There is no category there for anything to be supreme in. And if there was any way to properly investigate the supernatural, it would be folded in as a discipline under science. So the whole notion of non-overlapping magisteria, the notion that, oh, science is about these kind of questions and religion is about these kind of questions. No, science is about questions that we can reasonably get to an answer about. And religion is a bunch of bullshit that hasn't demonstrated any efficacy or any value or any expertise in any subject. It's not superior in its own bailiwick. It's bullshit.
And two, if it is the case that the supernatural and the natural can interact, because I mean, most Christians, most believers believe that their supernatural deity does in some way affect our world even today, with like answering prayers or performing miracles. To say that there is no overlap is a contradiction, because there is an overlap. If the science is analyzing the natural and the supernatural can affect the natural, then that can fall under the purview of science. So right there, I see it as a contradiction personally.
Well, yes. Well, I might argue that if it is demonstrable, then it is no longer supernatural. So
how do you do that? How do you know that? How do you know that? Because you're basically saying there's no such thing as the supernatural then, because let's assume that there was something that was supernatural in its nature and in its origin, but it manifested in reality in a detectable way. Just like, air makes the leaves move, and the air is natural. But what if there was something else that was supernatural that also made the leaves move? How did you determine that it can't be supernatural?
Well, yeah, you're right. I simply have to dismiss that. And there have been, no, I don't want to go down that road. I'm sorry. How do I know that the supernatural doesn't exist? Well, they say, if it is measurable, I tend to think that would fold it into the natural, even if we can't explain it yet.
Okay, so basically, you're saying that you suspect that if it's detectable or measurable, that it's not supernatural. That's a perfectly fine inference, but you asserted that it's not supernatural, that the supernatural doesn't exist, that it's not real. And then when pressed on how you can make that hyperbolic statement, you then backtrack to say, oh, well, I guess I can't. Okay, cool. But it's weird to me that people get, oh, the supernatural isn't real. And then when you push, how do you know that? Every single one of them winds up acknowledging, oh, I don't know that. I just don't have any reason to think it is. Yes, it's the same thing that we do when we talk about the burden of proof. You have so someone's innocence may in fact be impossible to demonstrate. And because of that, we presume innocence and don't make someone prove it. And so if someone fails to demonstrate that someone is guilty of a crime, then what we've done is we've shown that we do not yet have reason to conclude they are guilty. That doesn't mean we have reason to conclude they're innocent. And yet you're doing the same thing for the supernatural, just claiming, oh, the supernatural is innocent of existence, rather than acknowledging it. I have to conclude that it's not guilty of existing.
I do, in fact, presume natural explanations for things, even if I cannot access those explanations or those reasons for being. That is correct.
But are you acknowledging that in addition to that being the state of affairs, that is in fact irrational and unjustified?
It's not something I can prove.
Why are you comfortable? Why is it you're avoiding acknowledging that your position is irrational, and yet you claim that you can't prove it? So you believe something that you can't prove. Is that rational?
I'm trying to think of how to respond to that, Matt.
I'm just wondering, what's the justification for believing something is true while acknowledging you have no way of demonstrating that it's true? If you can't demonstrate it, how did you demonstrate it to yourself?
Well,
it sounds like a bias.
I am trying to unwind this. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
it's just a chill Sunday where I'm trying to figure stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I cannot exclude the possibility of things that are unknowable.
How do you know whether or not it's knowable? Why are we going to what's unknowable instead of what's unknown? Are you suggesting that the supernatural is unknowable rather than unknown?
Because you asked me about things that I cannot prove.
No. I didn't ask you about things that you cannot prove. Well, I asked you about things that you cannot demonstrate. Why would you believe something you cannot demonstrate? That is different from whether something can be demonstrated. You've now moved from the supernatural isn't real to the supernatural cannot be demonstrated. That's different from saying that it hasn't been demonstrated. So you made it even worse. How do you know the supernatural can't be demonstrated?
Well, and this is very circular, and I freely admit that. Again, if it can be demonstrated, I tend to roll it then into the category of natural as opposed to supernatural.
Okay, so all you're doing is talking about your own biases and your own irrationality, and then rationalizing you're being irrational. So you're saying if there's a way, you're saying if there's a way to demonstrate something, that you roll it into the natural, which is irrational and unjustified. And then you further say that the supernatural isn't real, which you cannot justify. And you say that the supernatural isn't just unknown, but is unknowable. How much knowledge do you have to have in order to determine that the supernatural is unknowable?
How much knowledge do I have to know before I know that? Wow.
How do you determine something? How do you determine? Pick any fact. How do you determine that it is not only unknown but unknowable?
Well, let me try to give you a very crude demonstration here. Sometimes when hearing arguments between theists, even among different flavors of theists, it sounds to me like people arguing about what is the most common digit in the decimal expansion of pi. And I would argue that pi is transcendental, it's irrational. Count as many of them as you like. I being transcendental, I believe it's provable that one cannot determine what is the most common, or the most, the most common digit in decimal expansion of pi, and that I would say at least approaches unknowable if it's not there already.
Okay. So first of all, it helps, but you're not going to like it. So first of all,
Okay.
While the specific digits of pi might, or the frequency of a particular digit in the expansion of pi might approach unknowable, because we're talking about not a transcendent thing, but an irrational number.
No. I don't say transcendental.
No, I'm still talking.
Mathematical meaning.
I'm still talking.
I'm sorry.
You say that when you hear theists arguing, to you, it sounds like they're talking about that. However, those things aren't the same. Pi is well defined. It is a very specific ratio. That's not the same thing as the supernatural. We're here disagreeing about the definition of the supernatural, and your definition is that it doesn't exist, can't exist, isn't just unknown, but is unknowable. And your justification for that is because to you, it feels like discussions about the supernatural are similar to this mathematical discussion. Those things are not remotely similar. And even if they were, it would be a mistake to assert that X is unknowable. And you acknowledge that your argument is circular and just kept right on going. I don't understand this, because also when you call in, it's funny because you're making all kinds of claims. And yet instead of identifying yourself as an atheist, you identify yourself as an agnostic. And normally when I deal with people who identify themselves as an agnostic, I don't get assertions about possibility like this. I suppose there's a contingent of agnostics that because they irrationally and hyperbolically conclude that the issue is unknowable rather than just unknown, prefer to label themselves that way. But this is all just one irrational conclusion piled on top of another. What's wrong with just saying they haven't met their burden of proof? I'm not convinced. I'm willing to be convinced that there is something supernatural just as soon as somebody shows me how to prove that.
Okay. To clarify something earlier, transcendental actually has a specific mathematical meaning that I can
Yes,
construct rational numbers.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay, fine. Fine, leave it. What's wrong with simply saying I remain unconvinced? I think that's actually kind of what I'm saying, is that I remain unconvinced. I'm not sure if I can be convinced. I have heard some other hosts say when the question is posed, what would it take to convince you? The response is, well, God only knows. I think is the proper response. I fully believe that there are illusionists that can trick me, and if there is something that will flip that switch in my brain, the deity, I would imagine, would know this. That then puts the ball in that deity's court. If I am currently unconvinced, it's because that deity has not convinced me. So, what is knowable? I don't know what.
Well, you're the one making claims about what's knowable, not me.
Okay, I'm trying to clarify.
See, that's the whole point, though. I'm objecting to things you said, and then instead of just acknowledging, oh yeah, I see what the objection is, maybe I should phrase it differently or do this other thing, or maybe I shouldn't, you be hyperbolic about it. Instead, you keep coming back to this is the way it feels to me. Okay. Congrats.
Okay. Well, let's see. I see it's attributed to Kierkegaard, and this may seem tangential, but that the truly faithful abhors the miracle. It is if something is a miracle, which I'm going to the supernatural, is demonstrable, that reduces the deity to a mere card sharp of physics and all followers mindless drones. Why? What is the need of faith? Not that I like faith, but what is the need of faith if something is demonstrable? So,
Okay, I'm gonna stop now because I'm just gonna keep harping on the same points, and it feels like you just threw up your hands and completely changed the subject to something else entirely without dealing with the issue. So I don't know.
I'm sorry. My apologies. We'll just be getting very far. Eric, do you want to chime in, or shall we say thank you for the call?
Yeah, I don't really have much to input on this. I think Matt pretty well covered it. I guess don't make any assumptions about you, Tom, but I guess do you happen to be like in the process of, say, deconstructing or deconverting, and you're just kind of like you're looking back on things that might have used to convince you or things you might use to appreciate and kind of questioning them? Are you in that kind of mindset right now?
No, I kind of put that behind me 20 years ago.
20 years ago, okay.
I pretty much just. Are you familiar with? I'm not even sure if this is a serious organization, but it's the Church Triumphant, Universal Church Triumphant of the Apathetic Agnostic. It's an online thing, and I can't tell if it's a parody church or not. But
on the surface, it sounds like one, but I'm not sure. I've never heard of them, but it from the name, I would probably assume that they're probably a joke. Universalist Association of the Apathetic Agnostic, or something like that.
The Universal Church Triumphant of the Apathetic Agnostic. The notion being that if there be a deity, it clearly doesn't give a flying fuck about us. So why should we care? Don't know, don't care. Hands up about it. And again, I can't tell if that's serious or not, but then maybe that's the.
It seems to me to be another complete distraction, because I'm not concerned about whether or not there's a God. I'm concerned about whether or not it's rational to believe there's a God, since millions, hundreds of millions, billions of people currently believe that there is and that it's rational and are legislating and voting on behalf of it. So once again, the people touting the agnostic label around are incredibly lazy and are like, oh, why should I care about that? I don't know, because hundreds of millions, if not billions of people do care about it, and they're the ones that are determining what is and isn't going to be permitted in your life. Maybe that's one of the reasons to care.
Well, I would say that's pretty much exactly my stance on it as well, is that this is the very best argument I can come up with for why we absolutely must have a secular government, in that we all get to argue back and forth about something that, frankly, I think isn't really relevant to what we're trying to do in terms of making a society that works for human beings, even though people can't seem to come to any sort of agreement on these sorts of things. So please leave it out of the government and out of the laws, please. Stick to just things that we can all agree on, and this ain't one of them.
Okay, then. All right. Well, Tom, we're going to go ahead and move on. So thank you for the call, and feel free to call back, and we'll talk to you later.
Sure. Thanks. Bye.
All right, bye. I would probably say that there's probably really good practical reasons why we can keep religion out of government, but I think it's probably maybe it's time to move on. Different caller there. Okay, we have another caller coming in. We have okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
I need to hit one thing real quick.
Oh, sure. Hold on. I just brought in Chris. Chris, I'm going to mute you really quick so Matt can say his thing. Then we'll get back to you. So stand by.
Yeah. So one of the things is that I should ignore chat, and I've been pretty good about ignoring chat. But you know what? Some smartass decided to say that Matt should shut up and stop pretending like he's an expert when somebody's trying to correct him. It's not the correction, which, by the way, there didn't need to be a correction, that bugged me. It was the fact that wow, we lost Chris.
Oh, bummer. Yeah.
What the heck is going on? I wonder if we're having problems again. Anyway, it's not the correction, even though there wasn't a need to be corrected. It was the interruption. I was actually dealing with this. And I wasn't incorrect. I'm aware that pi is transcendent as well. The point that I was making is that it's not the transcendent aspect of it that is what he's talking about. It is the irrational portion of it. And while all transcendent numbers are irrational, not all irrational numbers are transcendent. And the feature that he was pointing to as an analogy is a feature of irrational numbers, not merely a feature of transcendent numbers. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
On the topic of looking at the live chat, I know we don't read out super chats, but I'm going to read out this one. Drew Smith TPA, who is our number one chatter today in the live stream. So thank you so much, Drew. He donated $10 and said, I would love people to realize that agnosticism is not some middle ground between atheism and theism. Yep. As far as labels go and the way people perceive labels, many people perceive that, yes, agnosticism is some stepping stone either in or out of theism. A lot of people think that's the case, but yeah, if you look at the actual definitions and how agnosticism, or rather Gnosticism, references what you know, and theism references what you believe, that they are not mutually exclusive and they're not necessarily directly linked to each other. You can be both. There's a really good graphic online. It's a four section like grid, and kind of explains, okay, you can be a knowing believer. You can be a believer who knows what they believe is true. You can be a believer who doesn't know what they believe is true. And there's four combinations you can have there. So yeah, it's not a stepping stone or a middle ground. It's non-exclusive. So you can have both at the same time. Anyway, we lost our caller. No, I think, Chris is back. Okay, I think maybe Chris accidentally hung up, or maybe I hit the wrong button. I don't think I hit the wrong button. I definitely hit mute, but that's fine, whatever. Chris, we're bringing you back in. We're ready to talk to you now. So we have Chris from California, who is an agnostic theist. And Chris, you have a comment here that ESP and psychic energy are a thing. So,
yes, sir.
Hello, Chris. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Hey, hi, Eric. And hello, Matt.
Hi. What number am I thinking of?
I'll draw a picture and you can guess
7.
it.
Nope.
7's a good guess, though, because that is statistically speaking, 7's the most common number that's chosen between 1 and 10. So that was an educated guess, but not psychic.
My number wasn't
right. Go ahead.
So anyway, Chris, as somebody who has for years been paid to perform on stage and pretend that I can read minds and that ESP and psychic stuff are for real, I not only don't believe it's real, I believe it's obviously not real. And so I can't wait. Tell us what makes you think that ESP and psychic energy, let's pick one, I guess, to start with, because it seems like those are not the same thing, are actually real.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint and make an argument about it. Really,
Then why believe it?
Yeah. How did you become convinced if you can't tell us why you're convinced?
I'm sorry, again?
How did you become convinced if you can't tell us how you became convinced?
I don't know how convinced I am of anything. And as far as belief in anything, it's really, I've tried this before to try to think about what I believe and so on. And it gets down to I really kind of believe nothing. And
No, hang on. Didn't you
as far as
call
ESP
in
and psychic,
specifically?
I'm sorry. Go again.
Didn't you call in specifically because you believe that ESP and psychic energy are real?
That's not necessarily my way of trying to get in and stuff, but when I'm asked about I'm an atheist or a theist and so on, I've come up with a description of that. The things I'm more interested in talking about is kind of some political things. But anyway, hello. Are you talking, Matt?
Oh, I'm talking now for sure.
Okay.
You called in and told the call screener that ESP and psychic energy are real. And now you're saying you don't know if you believe, you don't know what you believe, you don't know anything about beliefs, but you wanted to talk about political things. Why didn't you just say that to the call screener?
Okay, that's a fair point. And yeah, I wasn't wanting to get into necessarily a discussion about.
I'm not interested
in
discussing political things right now. I wanted to discuss ESP and psychic energy. That's a legitimately, if somebody believes that that's real, I think that's an important thing to potentially know about, right?
Yeah, I've had several experiences over the years that gave me clues into something seemed to be going on. I can point to several specific instances, but that's anecdotes, and who knows where that would get us in any discussion or argument for that. But it's a feeling in my being that it feels as if there seems to be whatever purpose to this universe and something going on, and a possible reawakening of mankind, and possibly, who knows, maybe we are a sort of like a all of mankind being a spiritual being for the galaxy, that we can do great things. That's in some metaphysical books I've read. So that's kind of the source of some of my stuff.
Chris, do you think it's important to have an accurate way to determine whether this is true or false? Like Chris, let's say you're on trial for murder. Let's say you're on trial for Chris. Let's say you're on trial for murder. Is it important that the court have an accurate way to determine whether you actually are a murderer or not?
Of course. And
okay.
And
I would go on to say for any.
I'm sorry. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I agree with you. The truth is always a good thing, whether it hurts or not. It's always a good thing because reasons. So I would say that it is important that we have an accurate way to come to our knowledge in all things. Would you say that?
It's always good to have what? I'm sorry again.
It's always good to have an accurate way to come to our knowledge in all things.
Sure.
Okay, so that includes ESP.
Accurate way to come to our knowledge in all things.
Yes. So it is important that we have an accurate way to determine whether ESP is real or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. So from your comments before, it sounds like you don't have an accurate way to come to your knowledge of whether ESP is real or not.
Right.
Okay. So if that's the case, because I have lots of different things that I can point to, and I have no accurate way to come to knowledge of whether that thing is true or not. ESP, magic, the god Xenu from Scientology, the god Yahweh from Christianity. For all those things that I don't have a good method to determine whether it's true or false, I just ignore until maybe a good method comes about, and then we can analyze the thing better. That's kind of where I'm at, because if I get tied down in something that I favor because of like emotional reasons. Like you said, I think mankind's awakening and we're like an expression of the universe, and I'm hopeful for this thing to happen in the future. If I let my emotions dictate what I get interested in and what I latch onto, I can easily latch onto something that's completely false. Like maybe for some reason, Scientology just really just stirs my heart. And I think that we have Thetans in our blood, and that explains why mankind is in such a bad place, and all that. Like I can completely go down the wrong road and waste my life on nonsense. Isn't it better I ignore that until we have a good reason to believe it or a good reason to not believe it? So, like, are you like aligned with that in any way? Like, how do you know? I guess my question is, how do you know you're not just wasting your time on this ESP thing?
No, I don't. As far as spending the time delving into it, that I don't do that really. I've gone through the phases of believing it, hoping on it. It's kind of what you described, and being, I don't know, have it maybe affect what I do here and there. But then came to a phase where I'm like, what the hell was all that I thought, and I didn't really necessarily. I'm like, it's not proven to me. I don't know. And I'm sort of more of the second thing you said. So I've kind of been through those thoughts and feelings.
Okay, I guess my last question would be then. My next question would be then. I understand it's okay to like take interest in things and like ponder about them, but like, why are you calling in to a show about ESP then and using it as your topic, or was it? Did you cover that earlier? Like you actually want to talk about politics instead?
Topics about wondering about some, maybe I'll call Matt on one of his other shows later, but I wonder about Afghanistan. It's something in the world that nobody's talks about, and they have 90% of the heroin there, and they're growing it, and that's not mentioned. It's not out there, and we have constant wars there. So I don't know. That's one of the things. It's a political thing. That's not why we're here today. But what's going on there?
I don't know.
I didn't hear what you said. I saw your face.
There's a delay. Don't watch the video while you're talking to us because there's a delay. So.
Oh, okay. It's going another way than I think. I got it.
Yeah. I don't know, Matt. I'll leave this in your hands. You want to talk about Afghanistan and growing heroin there or whatever? Is heroin grown? I don't think it is.
Well, Afghanistan has drugs. What's the point? Why do you think? So, for example, I don't live in Afghanistan. I got loads of problems where I live and loads of problems in plenty of other places in addition to Afghanistan. Why is it you think we should be concerned about Afghanistan and heroin?
I think it's all part of it's everything. I mean, it trickles down to the whole big hubbub about fentanyl, and I mean that's an opium-based product and everything. The people addicted on opium, and all the source of it is heroin, and there's 90% of the heroin is in the world is grown in Afghanistan, and we have forever wars. I mean, there was the one perpetuated by Russia, and now perpetuated by us after that, and now nobody. Well, I don't know. We're still there, but it's just something that's not in the media, or hasn't. I just haven't seen it. No one talks about it.
Is it more important than Gaza? Is it more important than Ukraine? Is it more important than our economy? Is it more important than healthcare? Is it more important than immigration? Is it more important than the fact that government's shut down? If it's not more important than any of these things, maybe that's why people aren't talking about it. So why are you so focused on it?
Just I noticed that it's not ever addressed. I mean, I care about all those other things. and those are, I'm involved in some of them. The one about healthcare, well, healthcare not really, but I mean, and I'm real concerned about that, and the food stamps thing. And I'm concerned I don't know, I didn't put that down my list, but the fact that affects a lot of people and
Really?
puts them in
where does most of the heroin? Where does most of the heroin from Afghanistan go to?
Where does it get to? I think America.
No.
Wait, okay. Wait, where does it go to?
Primarily Europe and Asia. It was at one point 90% of the market, but it's primarily Europe and Asia.
Oh. Okay. Still not good. I don't know. Thinking globally, not United States.
Should we make a checklist of things that aren't good and figure out why we're not talking about them? Are they as big a deal as some of the other stuff?
The last part of your sentence again?
Well, I mean, you called in ostensibly to talk about ESP and psychic phenomena, and then you have no argument or reason or evidence for it, and evidently you've fallen off of it too. You still think it's real, but you don't care enough about it to do anything about it. And then you want to know why we're not talking about Afghanistan. And I'm trying to figure out why we would be. I mean, because you mentioned Afghanistan with regard to heroin, and really it's Afghanistan was a major producer of opium, but not fentanyl. Fentanyl's synthetic.
Right.
So if the primary concern right now in the United States fentanyl, and you mentioned fentanyl, what percentage of fentanyl is coming from Afghanistan? Isn't that 0%?
And isn't fentanyl an opiate where the source is heroin?
It is synthetic.
And I'm sorry, I don't have full grasp of what that means. Does that mean it does not come from?
It does not occur naturally.
Heroin.
It was created by a chemist.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I'm obviously don't have all that figured out. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, Chris.
Yeah. There's a difference between things that are directly produced from opium and things that are synthesized as opioids. And I don't have enough expertise, but I'm trying to figure out, I mean, I was really hoping that we'd get at least some sort of defense of ESP or psychic phenomenon or anything like that. And instead we got why aren't we talking about this issue that I don't know enough about and that doesn't seem that important right now? I guess because it doesn't seem that important.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I called way back 10 years ago. Talked to you, Matt, and I've been wanting to call in. That I'm happy you helped kind of flesh out this Afghanistan heroin deal for me, and I mean that's helped in my own mind. And
okay. Well, it also should help that this show didn't exist 10 years ago, but okay.
What's that again? It also helped what?
It should have also helped to discover that this show did not exist 10 years ago when you say you called.
I know what happened. I talked to you at Atheist Experience, and I know that was a different show. You're still you.
You didn't know Matt. That was a different show. Well, let me let you know. There's a different show, a different network, and the people running that organization can, I don't know, pack sand.
I'm up on what's going on there a little bit, Matt. I understand they're different and all that. I know, and whatever. You didn't have a good experience with it. I don't want to talk about
you're
details
up on
like
what's
that.
going on, and you understand that they're different, but you literally just said you didn't know they were different. You seem very confused.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No, I didn't say I didn't know they're different. Atheist Experience.
I'm sorry.
Where you are now. You're with Jimmy Snow.
Hang on. Eric, did he say that? Is that what you heard?
I think he said he knows they aren't different. Or I'm sorry, take that back. I'm messing up now too. I think he said he does know that they are different. I think he's.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it might have been miscommunication there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. Well,
if
tell you
that's what you
Chris-
said, then my apologies, Chris. But
That's cool.
okay.
Yeah. The connection is not the greatest either. You're a little muffled there, Chris. So it's a little hard to understand, but we appreciate the call. And yeah, so and Chris, tell you what, you know, you came in here and you have a agnostic theist as your label. Tell you what, give some thought as to why you're holding the position of agnosticism with regard to your theism, and maybe call us back. We could talk about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in with a little better match to what you guys desire and so on. That'd be cool.
All righty. Well, cool. Thanks, Chris. Have a good day.
All right, you guys too.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna let you start the next one.
I think
I'm gonna rewind
no worries.
because there's people in chat telling me to open my ears, and I'm like, okay, you don't necessarily know the audio difference and what audio is dipping and what it sounds like when people are talking over each other and there's a delay. And anyway, I want to hear what was actually said, so I'm going to do that real quick.
Yeah, no worries. And I think that the way you're experiencing the discussion and me and the caller is different than what's actually like presented in the final YouTube stream. It's kind of weird. There are multiple delays on top of each other, and it gets kind of weird. So, all right, yeah, we're going to bring in somebody else here. We have two theists, and Ben in the queue. I absolutely want to talk to you about that, but we got to prioritize theists. So I'm going to stick to our rules here. I'm going to bring in a theist first, but hang in there, Ben. I want to get to you. We're going to go ahead and bring in who's been waiting longer. John's been waiting longer. Hello, John. John's a theist from Washington. Is this the same John from earlier? Accident versus design. Man. Accident versus design should be the first question in a decision tree in logical order of reasoning. So, hello, John. How you doing? And would you care to elaborate on your topic there?
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Eric. I guess, I just real quick, I spoke to Matt probably a little over a year and a half ago. In fact, it was a Recovering from Religion episode, and I just happened to jump in and see him. And I called right in, of course, anxious theist as I was. And we had a good discussion. In fact, he asked me to call him back. But before I called him back, which I'm calling now, I had to do a little more listening. And one of the questions why I'm calling today, isn't necessarily to defend theological elements, but rather, because I know Matt focuses on philosophy. But my question is, I guess, why wouldn't the first question be, is the universe accidental or designed? Taking out the God equation, right? The God equation might be on the decision tree, a branch of designed, who it is, who it might be, why there's good reason to believe it might be this particular entity, which also could obviously be a God. But as it relates to, is the universe accidental or designed? Isn't that a much more difficult, I'll say, debate or discussion to have, because it somewhat pits two claims against each other. And I'm curious how Matt thinks about, number one, if that's the best question to ask first, but number two, how that question might be debated out, because I do think there's a lot more circumstantial evidence and inferred causes related to the universe being designed, all the way from, probability factors related to, I think he knows, I won't go into it, but I'll just start with
that. I think the first thing that sticks out to me, I know you're asking Matt, but I just want to maybe put in my 2 cents. Accident versus design, to me, is not a true dichotomy. The question should be designed or not designed, because accident has like some baggage in there that I don't like. Because in many senses, accident has intent behind it. It's just the outcome was not what was intended. So, is there a reason why you're staying away from design versus not designed, and rather going with design versus accident?
Well, because I suppose that you have to, if you say design versus not designed, you might end up in a spot where you do have to at some point explain, we are here, we are thinking, we are present. So you have to come up with, I suppose, and this word might be wrong, but a cause, an accidental cause. I've heard that thrown around. Design versus not designed, doesn't that just leave you in a position where we exist, we might be designed, the alternative is we just don't exist, it's not designed? I mean, at what point do you jump over?
I mean, that kind of touches on like existent versus non-existent, because design versus not designed. First of all, that's gonna be a true dichotomy. So if you're talking about decision tree, and you have this, you're at your first node, and that's the question: yes and no, yes or not is your pass out of there. So you don't want to have your first node talking about the universe, and then you have two pass out of there. One says designed, one says accident, because you're not covering all possibilities. You're only covering the possibilities you're interested in exploring. So if that's the case, then the decision tree is not really there to explore truth. Is to explore kind of what you want to talk about, like your preferred conversation around it, I guess. So that's kind of where my hang up is. Like I would just completely stay out of the realm of accident, because by saying design versus not designed, you're not excluding accident. Accident will be under one of those trees or under one of those branches. It's still in the tree somewhere. You can explore it. You just aren't filtering out without justification certain paths that might be relevant or might be true.
Mm. And let me ask you this question then. I guess when like Roger Penrose and Stephen Hawking, and they put probability factors, what are they using the probability factor against? What's the two?
I don't know. I don't study deep deep physics like that, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
And only one of the two of those was a theist, by the way. But you haven't provided any context for what they're talking about with probability factors. Hawking was basically, if the universe has an intended purpose, it's for creating black holes. But when talking about design, we recognize design not by clarity, and we don't have to do a false dichotomy of it's designed or it's an accident. We recognize design by the evidence for design and contrasting that which is intentionally designed with that which occurs naturally, which isn't the same thing as saying accident. Physics isn't an accident that, you might have knocked over a cup, and of course it's following gravity, but there was some sort of causal chain for that. There's a difference between a tree growing and changing through random mutations that are then acted upon by natural selection. Nothing about that is accident. It is ordered and dictated by the facts of reality. So no, I don't think that every decision tree or any decision tree should start with accident versus design, because that's a false dichotomy. Instead, if we're going to say, is this designed or not designed? It doesn't matter whether it's accidental or the process of natural selection or the way physics works or anything else. That's about how we recognize design. It has nothing to do with decision trees on anything else.
Mm-hmm. And well, I guess so. I understand where it comes from, biological elements. Natural selection. That is somewhat a force, if you will. But when it comes to innate, and you see the overlapping elements of innate elements in this universe, even down to our own planet, just talking about things like, I don't know what you mean. A million innate things. Well, innate things that can't be described through a process.
Are you saying? Hang on, John. Are you saying neat or innate? Because
innate. Sorry, innate.
Our planet. What do you mean? Our planet is innate?
No, I'm saying innate elements, right? Right. There are innate forces in the universe that don't have something like natural selection to move it along, and it seems sophisticated and developed. I know that gravity might impact some of those things, but the why to those innate things, right?
I need an example. I need need an example
Okay.
of an innate thing that seems developed.
How about the Earth's crust and how the recycling of carbon into its core? And we don't see that in any other planet. How about the moon and
No. You're looking at Earth. By the way, how many other planets, what percentage of the planets have you had the ability to explore to determine whether or not they have an atmosphere?
not many. But
Really?
none that have been.
Is it less than 0.00001% of all planets? Yes.
Probably.
Yeah, because there's anyway. So you're looking at the Earth and you're saying, hey, the Earth has this functional ecosystem that appears designed. Cool. What makes you think it's designed? Because I see nothing in it that is designed.
I think it's the overlapping mechanisms that, like I just mentioned, recycling of carbon that helps life on Earth. I mean, the recycling element of.
I'm sorry, I was asking, what about that seems designed? And so you're saying the recycling of carbon seems designed? Why? What makes that seem designed?
Well, because it refreshes the surface over a certain period of time.
So I mean, I'm asking what makes that seem designed, and you're telling me what it does as if I don't know what the fuck it does. I'm asking what makes it seem designed.
Because it seems intentional.
Intentional for what? By what?
Intentional to serve a purpose.
And no, the fact that something functions doesn't mean that it has a purpose or that it was intended for that purpose. If I chop down a tree and sit on the tree stump, is that a chair?
No, I mean, it can be used for that. I understand your point.
Yeah, it can be used for a chair. And when I cut the tree down, did I intend it to be a chair? But it maybe not. What if the tree fell over and formed a nice, like in a thunderstorm, lightning struck it and the tree fell over and it formed a nice seat with a high back? Does that mean the lightning intended to make a chair for me? You cannot look at, here's what it does, and infer this is the purpose. That is fallacious.
Well, Let me ask you on that level real quick. What if you did come into a forest and you saw a spindled, what appeared to be a chair? You saw a detail within it, and it did serve a purpose. Would you still think to yourself, someone made this, or would you think to yourself, well, this probably could have happened by accident? I don't know the person who created it. I don't know if it was done by purpose. But doesn't some of the detail in what you observe start to infer a conclusion?
Why is it that every time you theists start talking about design and you say that something like the ecosystem on the Earth or the carbon cycle or whatever, that appears designed, and when we point out how it doesn't appear designed, you can give an example of, what if you came across a spindled chair that appeared designed out in the woods? I tell you what, if I find one of those, we can have a discussion about that chair. But there is absolutely no chair, real, imagined, created or not, sitting out in the woods that has any bearing on whether or not the carbon cycle is designed. Not one.
Okay. Let me give you another real quick example, if I could. My son and I like to go on the beach here, and we look at arrowheads, or we look for arrowheads. Now, some of the things we find could be natural. We can explain it. We look at it, examine it. We come back and research it. Okay, so but the more complex it gets, even as basic as a rock arrowhead.
Nope. Complexity is irrelevant. Simplicity is the hallmark of design, and we recognize those things that are designed by contrasting them with those things that occur naturally. And so when you're picking up things and you're trying to figure out, is this an intentionally designed, created, crafted arrowhead, you look for tooling marks in particular, and you make a case for its consistency with things that are manufactured, and you contrast it with things that occur naturally. If you pick up something and it isn't clear, and you cannot rule out that it was that it occurred naturally, you have not made a case for design. You just found an interesting rock.
Basically, John, every time you look at something and you infer that is designed, you are operating under existing knowledge that you've gained via other experiences to make that inference. We never look at something initially as a completely blank slate. Like, let's say you had a human who has no experiences in life whatsoever. They have logic and reason, but they have no experiences dealing with anything. You can present them anything, and they have nothing to work off of to determine whether it's designed or not. It's the same thing with a spindle chair in the forest or an arrowhead on the beach. You need that preceding knowledge in order to make inferences. And the inference comes from that knowledge, not from what you're actually observing in the object.
You're also looking at it within a particular context of information that, as Eric's pointing out, is biasing you. So, for example, if you're walking along in the woods and you see a creek and it is dammed up by sticks and mud, was that a beaver dam, or was that just remnants of trees and mud that washed up during a flood?
It could be either.
Okay. How would we tell the difference? Are you saying that we can't tell the difference between a beaver dam and just the results of flooding?
I'm sure someone with experience, I'm not so sure I could know that, but I'm sure someone could. There's a way to investigate it.
So you're confident that someone could, and maybe they would look at it by comparing teeth marks and chewing marks, or the internal structure of it, or the markings of beavers coming in and leaving it, or the fact that it has a nice little hollow spot on the inside, or any of those things. And all of those bits of data come from what? They come from studying beavers creating dams and studying natural flooding process. And so we can build a strong case for this particular dam is almost certainly built by beavers. And this particular dam is almost certainly the result of a washout from a flood. And we can only do that because we have knowledge of, experience with, and evidence for both beavers building dams and washouts and floods creating faux dams. How do we do that with something like the carbon cycle, with something like the universe? What do you compare it to?
What do you compare it to? I mean, I suppose to your point, you'd have to just look at other examples in the universe, I suppose, to see how common those things are in other planets and other instances.
Okay, so let's imagine that we knew everything. Well, not everything. That we had knowledge of every planet in the entire universe, and this is the only one with a carbon cycle. Does that tell you whether it's designed?
No.
Nope. And so the very method where I was asking how would we go about testing it, the one you came up with, that alone doesn't do it. What we would need is evidence of a designed carbon cycle and a naturally occurring carbon cycle to determine which one ours might be. And it would be better if we had many, many examples of those. But the fact that something is rare or unique, or even, sorry, I'm going to do this for fun, very unique, whether or not that's the case doesn't tell you whether or not it's designed. And so we are looking at things and saying, and I think you'd probably recognize this, John, that your view, like mine and everybody else's at some point, is that we're special and that the universe was presumably created for us, and that it's really nifty that we happen to be on the planet with the environment, with the right temperature, the right distance from a sun, the right carbon, nitrogen, oxygen mixes, the sources for food. It's just really convenient that we're here in this place that seems so incredibly suited to us that people think, hey, this was created for us. And what if it's the exact opposite? What if we are what could and did evolve here, and that the true thing of design would be if we lived on a planet that was completely inhospitable to us. How do you tell if we are what the planet could produce or if the planet was created for us? How do you tell the difference between those?
I think that's a tough question. I actually think that is the main question. But you're asking the fundamental, how do you tell?
Yeah.
The answer that comes to my mind,
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to say, you'd have to be privy to information that we're not privy to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I can't say that the universe isn't designed. I can just say I don't see any evidence that it's designed. I can't say that our ecosystem isn't designed as an intentional creation. I can just say I don't see any evidence for it, and I don't have access to enough information to do a proper comparison. Somebody, like the apologists will come up with examples like, well, if you walked out in your front yard and you saw that someone had apparently taken leaves and spelled out, "Hello, Matt," on your front yard in leaves, would you presume that happened naturally or that somebody did it? Well, I have seen lots of leaves, and I've seen how leaves behave, and I've seen how physics interacts, causes leaves to blow around and pile up and not pile up. And I've seen people write messages with things like leaves. So all I would say is my strongest compulsion would be that this was an intentional creation by a person, because the overwhelming majority of the evidence suggests that doesn't occur naturally, or at least it's incredibly rare that it would occur naturally. But yet we see all kinds of weird things in this world. We see rocks that are shaped strongly like people. We see vegetables that are shaped like penises and vaginas. We see all kinds of things where it's like, hey, nature did something really weird, and we're all going to look at it and stare and point. We see this all the time, and yet it's still extraordinary, because even though we frequently see it, it is not frequent enough to just be the norm. It's like your odds of winning the lottery are incredibly low, but people win the lottery every single week somewhere. And we're all familiar with lottery winners and the hardship stories of it afterwards and life-changing and all this stuff. But that doesn't mean that they were chosen to pick the lottery by the lottery gods. And that's kind of what we're doing when we pretend like we were chosen and this planet was built for us by the God of humans, as if there is that thing. So I just need more before I can say, oh, not only is that designed. By the way, interesting side question real quick, John. Let's say I agreed with you that the Earth is almost certainly intentionally designed for us. Who designed it?
That is the next part on the decision tree that I was going to try to investigate. I don't have. Yeah, that's a good question.
Do we know, like, even if I were to agree that the universe is designed, I do not, but even if I were to, what information can we infer about the designer from that? Can we even infer that designer still exists, or that designer designed it for us, or that designer didn't just like create everything and go away? Or maybe it designed it for some other purpose, like chopping down a tree, and we just were the ones that felt comfortable sitting here. It could be designed, but not designed for us. I don't know how to tell anything about the designer, even if I were to agree there's one, and I can't get to the first step.
Mm-hmm. Well, but I do think that the only reason I prefaced my call the way I did, or this idea of a decision tree, is getting to that next step to see if there's anything worth exploring, because I do think, and I'm just saying this, I don't think science and testing really even allows for the opportunity to try to suggest there's a designer. So I don't think anybody's really looking. I think it exists in philosophical language like you're presenting now, but it doesn't exist in practical language. I'll just give you a real quick.
Why not?
For instance, I was watching why doesn't it? Well, that's a good question. I don't know why not, because I don't think when you look at all university studies and they don't. I don't see a lot of, hey, if this is true, God exists, or a designer. Let's just say, if this is not true, then obviously I say accident, but not using that term for a second.
No.
This alternative.
You were suggesting that science doesn't consider whether or not things are designed. We do that all the time.
I don't see that. The problem is
that there are things that some people think are designed, which have no good evidence for science to reach that conclusion, and then they want to blame it on science. No, if something is designed and there's evidence for it, that would be a reasonable conclusion of science. This is how we spot forgeries. This is how we spot, when somebody makes a chair versus whether or not a piece of wood just happened to land in a convenient spot. Science does this stuff all the time. It's exactly why I gave the example of a beaver dam versus a naturally occurring, dam from a flood. Science can and does investigate that. The problem is that it can't evidently reach the conclusion on the thing you've reached. And so that becomes a question of, why are you reaching conclusions that aren't supported by science?
And
but
John, sorry, John, go ahead and respond to Matt.
No, sorry, there's a little delay. So I think,
no worries.
do you think then that science, you're suggesting to me that science does in fact throw in this idea of a designer into some of their tests? They're looking for that, I guess, in general.
For the universe?
Call it in almost any subject you might choose. Is there serious
in any subject, if
study?
someone raises the question, is this designed by an intelligence or not? There are categories where science can make reasonable conclusions about that question. And then there are other categories that currently science cannot reach a reasonable conclusion about that. And the question I asked is, why are you believing something that science can't make a reasonable conclusion about?
Science reach a conclusion about? Because I'm processing it right now. I mean, I would say I'm in the process of thinking.
Well, it says
through
you're a
like
theist, which means you are convinced that some God exists, right?
I am right now.
Okay.
Sure.
So right now, you are convinced that some God exists. What has convinced you that some God exists, and why are you comfortable reaching that conclusion when science hasn't reached that conclusion?
The answer would just be the way I was raised, I suppose. I have to admit that.
Does the way you were raised, is that more likely to lead to truth or less likely?
Probably less likely.
Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna stop, because I appreciate the fact that you're being honest with the answers. I just don't understand how you can be honest with these answers and continue to believe the thing while acknowledging that it's not rational or supported by good evidence. I don't. Please don't misunderstand. I believed because I was raised to believe as well. And once you start there, rationalizations just make sense. Everybody around you believes. Of course it was made for us. It's absurd to think all of this just happened by accident. And that's why I think you started with design versus accident. But physics is not an accident, and biology is not an accident, and evolution is not an accident. It is the opposite of accident. The diversity of life is based on the fact that self-replicating molecules are going to make mistakes in replication. And those mistakes are going to be considered not by an intelligence, but by the criteria. If you form a mutation, for example, I breed snakes. We have hatched out a number of different twins. And while I've never hatched out a snake with no eyes, we know people who have hatched out a snake with no eyes. We also hatch out snakes that have very different patterns. Most of the snakes that we have, that we're producing in the ball python realm, would not survive in the wild given the incredibly bizarre wild patterns we have, whites and oranges and things like that. It's the dull browns that allow them to hide, to avoid predators, and to be stealthy in order to get prey. It also is relevant to temperature regulation, whereas the white's going to reflect more heat and the black's going to absorb more heat. I have species of snakes another species in the genus is their head's entirely black, and the whole snake hides underneath a rock and just sticks its head out. And because its head is black, that allows it to absorb all of the heat that its entire body needs merely because its head is black. There's another species in that genus that doesn't have a fully black head, and so it must sun itself differently. Those genetic changes determine how likely that thing is to survive, how easy it is to absorb heat, how easy it is to thermoregulate. The popular varieties that we might sell would not survive in the wild because they would not be able to thermoregulate. They would not be, safe around predators. That's not an accident. Not only we didn't create any of those morphs, we are breeding them and following the laws of Mendelian genetics, et cetera, in order to produce offspring at a particularly likely rate. But those are the things that, when they occur in nature, they tend to die. Like albino snakes don't do pretty well in nature, and it's really rare to find them. But that mistake gets passed along, and then it becomes something desirable for people to breed.
Yeah.
There's nothing about this that's an accident, though.
And I will say, I even though I am a theist, I do believe in evolution. But yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to, as you were talking, and I'm not trying to go back on something earlier, but you mentioned the example of the dam. Let me ask you this, and we also mentioned that we don't have access to the information we need to have access to be sure about something. What if someone took a picture of the dam, and this is a sincere question, what if someone took a picture of the dam, and all you had was the picture? The dam no longer exists, and you brought it to someone that was specialized in beaver dams, and you said, is this accident or caused by flooding, or is it caused by a beaver? And all you have is the picture. What would you say? Like, how do you get to the information of truth there? Because isn't that what we're kind of saying in the sense that from a structural sense, we don't have access to the ability to investigate fully. We only have circumstantial like evidence. And so how would someone in that scenario, how would you arrive to any conclusion?
I wouldn't, but if you take a picture to an expert, you're asking them to make a judgment based on the available evidence. Pictures can have lots of information. There can be enough information in a photograph to determine if something is in fact a beaver dam or more likely not a beaver dam. I'm not the expert. I don't necessarily know what that is, but one of the nice things about experts, especially like scientific experts, is that they can say, in this case, really can't tell. There's not enough information there. And the answer then becomes, cool. It sucks that we don't necessarily know everything, but it's not a fault or a problem of the process. It is the high point of the process. Science recognizes what its limitations are. And quite frankly, the overwhelming majority of the time, the right answer is going to be, I don't know. And so if you take a photograph to a scientist and say, is this a beaver dam or is this a flood? It may be the case that they would immediately say, oh, there's enough information here. I can tell it's a beaver dam. Or it might be that they have to say, nope, I can't tell you. There's not enough information there for me to determine if it's a beaver dam. So you've come up with an example that is going to be different depending on the information in the photo and what the experts know. And yet, once again, it is not remotely comparable to the examples that people want to offer with regard to the universe. Like, who has enough information? You can't take something where nobody has enough information to reach a conclusion and pretend that we then have enough information in some other case. I'm confused as to what we're getting at here.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
think,
guess what I'm wondering if there's enough. I apologize. Sorry. Go ahead.
no worries. I was going to say, in all that discussion about the photo of the beaver dam, whether we're justified or not to determine whether a beaver actually created that dam or not, that's all still reliant on that past knowledge and experience of beavers. Imagine taking a photo like that in a world where we've never seen beavers, we've never experienced them, we never photographed them. They're entirely, their existence is entirely speculation and in our minds. And then we take that photo to an expert and go, did a beaver create this or not? That's the situation we're in when it comes to whether something is God created or not.
You could do it with the Mars rover. The Mars rover's out there driving around. We don't know what life, if any, of any sort of mobility ever existed. If we come across something on Mars, we could say, hey, did that occur naturally, or was that designed by some intelligence? We haven't yet, as far as I know, found anything that fits that category, but we could ask that question. And what if it turns out there's a life form on Mars that we know nothing about, and it's sitting there leaving traces of its existence and what it does all over the place? But to Eric's point, we have no experience with it, so we can't even say, this is designed. And that's why we get back to the thing I pointed out earlier, which is the claim X is designed needs to have evidence to support it. And the claim X is naturally occurring and not designed also needs evidence to support it. And unfortunately, there are going to be some things where we don't have enough information to reach a conclusion. And so for example, the people who are thinking, the universe looks designed, I'm going to go with a God did it. They might be right, but they are not rational. They are not doing it based on sufficient evidence. They don't have justification. And so if they're right by happenstance. They're right by a coin toss, instinct, inference. The time to make a conclusion, make a decision about whether or not something's designed is when the evidence overwhelmingly shows that it is, or the evidence overwhelmingly shows that it's not.
To maybe put into a different perspective there, John. So you say you take your kid and you go out over and you go find arrowheads. Let's say, John, you are out there looking for arrowheads and you come across this object and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. I'm not going to describe it. I'll let you fill in whatever blanks you want about this object, but you have never experienced this object before. How do you determine whether that object is alien created or not?
Alien, like off-planet alien?
Off-planet aliens, yes. How would you go about to determine that?
I couldn't. You're right. I wouldn't have the sufficient capacity to do that.
Right. I mean,
but
I see what you're saying there. I would say
with intelligence.
Well, hold on, John. Hold on. Let's walk through this just a little bit slower.
Okay.
I would say you don't have the capacity. You just don't have. You're not equipped to do it currently. I guess maybe that could be the same. Okay. But what would be your first step to correcting that? Whether you want to determine whether this is alien made or not, what would be the first step you could do?
Well, and I'm not trying to be smart here, but I guess I would go through it. Does it look natural, or does it look artificial, or man, or not? Does it look intelligently crafted? I would start with that as a basis. If I ran into an object, I guess I would, to my original point, that's where I would start. I guess I'm just thinking through it as if I was actually doing it as you ask those questions.
But whether or not it's natural or not, I mean, I guess it's kind of related. But for me, John, my first step would be to determine whether aliens exist or not, because I could say, hey, John, you have this mysterious object. Is it created by the Merfolk or not? well, what is a merful nerful? Like that goes back to the beaver dam picture question. Imagine bringing a picture like that in a world where nobody has ever seen a beaver or knows what a beaver is, and you ask, is it created by this entity? And we have no examples of that entity. We've never studied it. How do we start in a situation like that and then infer that yes, indeed, this object was created by this entity we've never experienced? Like,
Well, but
wouldn't it make sense?
That's kind of the point of my call in some sense. Let's just say on the beaver dam, as you're talking, I'm answering them as I come to my mind.
You're fine.
Let's say the beaver dam looks very organized, the sticks are placed very purposeful. It could still be accidental, I'll avoid that term for a second.
Mm-hmm.
It could be based on a storm bringing down sticks, and they just happen to align themselves in a certain way. And to your point, if I'm sitting there looking at some shape on a beach that has complexity, grooves in it a certain way, I guess, it could be accidental or again, not accidental, but it could be produced by nature. But I guess to your point, I agree. There's no way I would know if the nerful, whatever
Merful
species, created it or not. But I think I would. I think the first step I could say is, there was some intelligence on both the dam and the object on the beach. I do think that. I mean, as I sit here in chat, I do think that's the first thing to contemplate.
But I think you're making some important admissions there that you don't know whether this thing's natural or not natural. You don't know. Like, there's so many questions around it. And when we're and here's the thing. This is my whole point of that question was we're kind of crossing these categorical boundaries because we have lots of experience with man-made things. That's why when you go on the beach and you pick up an arrowhead, you can identify, yeah, this is an arrowhead. I know a human made this because you have experience with lots of other man-made things. And we can then take that process and erroneously compare it and use it in a category outside of man-made. Christians and theists do this a lot with God-made things. They think that their process and their experience with man-made objects equips them to determine whether something's God-made or not. And the reason I brought the alien-made things is because our experience as humans and making human things does not inform us whether an object is alien-made or not, especially in a world where we've never encountered aliens or studied them. Once we do encounter aliens and we do study them and we do observe things, them actually making things, we can then build a knowledge base to then make inferences on other objects. We become equipped to do that. And let's apply this to the whole God category. Until we encounter a God, until we can interact with a God, until we actually witness a God making things, we are utterly ill-equipped to use a process like we do with man-made things to identify God-made things. There's these fundamental steps or hurdles we have to clear first before we can even get into these types of inferences. And I think you kind of not directly admitted it earlier, but inadvertently admitted it here and there because you're basically saying we're not equipped, we don't have the knowledge, the prerequisite knowledge, all those things. We need to get over those very basic hurdles first, establishing a God exists, and getting some examples, concrete examples of God-made things first, before we can use any type of inference on anything else. Because if you're making that jump and erroneously taking our knowledge of man-made things and apply it to God-made things, when you pick up something on the beach, because I'm assuming under your theology, God made everything. So you're picking up, like this is the watchmaker's analogy, you're on a beach and you pick up a watch. You are picking up a watch inside of a sea of watches, and there's no uniqueness to it. There's nothing there to differentiate it from non-God made things. So the process breaks down because of the fundamental problems of an idea of a God making everything, but also the fact that we have no knowledge of a God, or we have no examples of a God, or examples of them making these things. So I hopefully I didn't overwhelm you with that there, but like that's the problem that we're seeing there, is that we're taking processes that are very reliable for certain category of objects and applying it to this other category of objects that we have no knowledge about.
Yeah. No, and I would say, obviously, because I say I'm a theist, I do believe what you said right now. I'm working on that. But I would say that I'm also trying to focus on the first part of it, which is not presuming that there is a quote God that made everything, but rather just the part about the designer as it related to the beach
Right.
artifact example. Because I don't like. There's a lot of tribes in this area, and they have a unique nomenclature to their design, and I don't sit there and think to myself, if I find what I think is an arrowhead, again, doesn't mean it for sure is, but because I may not be able to identify the tribe it comes from, doesn't automatically make me go back and go, well, then I guess it's automatically, it could be natural. But I still presume that there's a tribe and a person behind it. I may not know who that is. But anyway,
Right.
that's my
Okay. Well, all right. Well, hey, John, we appreciate the conversation. It was a pleasant discussion, and yeah, I enjoyed listening to you and Matt discuss things, and yeah, I hope you have a good evening, and yeah, please call back.
You guys too.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah.
All right. We have one caller remaining, and that's going to be Ben, who I mentioned earlier. But before that, Ben, I'm going to make you wait just a couple more seconds. So I'm going to repeat the announcements that I made earlier. So yeah, folks, thank you for joining us tonight. We're nearing the end of the show. We have one call left, but if you want more of what you're seeing here, well, hey, you're in luck. Tonight, we at 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to have part 2 of the Sunday show After Dark. And that'll be tonight with Forrest Valkai and Justin from Deconstruction Zone. And we have lots of other shows throughout the week. We have Skeptalk, Chewed Gum, The Hang Up, TACIS, and Cus I Wanna. And that'll be one a day for the next 5 days. And Skeptalk, Chewed Gum, The Hang Up, and Cus I Wanna are all at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then TACIS, the Transatlantic Call-In Show, on Thursday will be at 2 p.m. So please tune in for that. And with that, I guess we will just go ahead and bring in our last caller. And we have our last caller here, Ben from Alabama. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Ben's an atheist, and I guess this is a question directed towards me. As a child, I lost a friend to denial of medical care by his JW parents, Jehovah's Witness parents, and you want my perspective. So hello, Ben. I'm sorry to hear about you losing your friend. Do you care to give us some details, and we can talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. Hey, Eric, I'm Matt. Yeah, it happened, happened over 40 years ago, but so I'll try to keep the, I won't be able to go into too many details, honestly, but
no worries.
Yeah, but as best I can remember the situation, I befriended this teenager who had been taken in to another friend's house because his parents had kicked him out of his house for being a teenager, listening to metal and smoking cigarettes. And he came down with a life-threatening medical issue and needed to be hospitalized. And I think he even had a different family member come in to bring money to help pay for all his medical bills. But then suddenly his JW parents appeared from out of the woodwork and denied him blood transfusions.
Yeah.
And my other friend's family tried really hard to get that overruled in the court. I think they tried to adopt him.
Mm-hmm.
But he eventually did die from that. And I was in elementary school at the time. It was definitely a formative memory.
Yeah, I bet. The blood transfusions are still, to this day, prohibited by the Jehovah's Witness doctrine. And it's really crazy how they get to that, because there's a scripture in the Bible that basically tells you when you eat on animals, be sure to bleed them all the way. Don't consume blood, because blood is like the life force from God. It's a scripture literally talking about consuming blood as nourishment, and the witnesses have taken that and taken it a step further and say, oh, you shall not put blood of any kind in your body, and that includes life-saving blood transfusions. And yeah, they even had a long time ago. I think a long time ago now. Pull up the Awake magazine here. It was an Awake or Watchtower magazine, which is one of their publications. Showing portraits of all the children who died from refusing blood transfusions. Or I take that back, all the portraits of all the children who have died because their parents refused their kids' life-saving blood transfusions, and touting this as a good thing, trying to prop these kids up as like, oh, look at such splendid examples of the faith. Yeah, it's gross and disgusting. And yeah, this has been a thing for a really long time, and unfortunately, I don't think they're ever going to change their position on this. The witnesses have changed a lot of their positions, especially in the last few years. Like they've done some really interesting U-turns on some things, but I don't think they're ever going to do this for the blood transfusions because imagine being a parent, you let your kid die because of no blood transfusions, and then next week the Watchtower organization says, "Oh, we changed our minds; it's allowed again." I think it would cause too much of a problem. The magazine is The Awake. Yeah, it's nuts. The magazine is The Awake magazine from May 22nd, 1994, entitled "Youths Who Put God First." And yeah, just the front cover. It's just icky. Yeah, and it's terrible. And this is one of the real harms that comes from a cult like the Jehovah's Witnesses, because they will actively get in the way of you getting the life-saving treatment that you need. Because not only do they condition parents to deny these types of things, the elders in the congregation will get directly involved. They have this. They had this document, and they still have it, I believe. The witnesses, and I've signed a few of these growing up. They will have this thing. It's called the blood card, but it's really a durable power of attorney. It is a power of attorney on a sheet about that big, giving whoever else signs that document with you the ability to intercede on your part with medical matters when it comes to blood transfusions. So, like, let's say, because that's how important it is to them. They're like,
oh wow, so they covered themselves legally to murder their kids. Huh?
Basically, yeah. Like, it's more along the lines of if, like, let's say I'm a Jehovah's Witness and I'm in a car accident, I'm incapacitated. To ensure that I do not receive blood, and I'm unable to deny it myself because I'm incapacitated, they have that power of attorney. They can walk into a hospital, an elder, a person who's not related to me, but who signed the document that I allowed to sign the document because I'm a good Jehovah's Witness and I follow the rules. They can stroll into that hospital and say, no, don't give Eric a blood transfusion because I have the power here. And the hospitals legally have to abide by that. And they still do that to this day. They have these cards and they have sessions at the meeting where everyone gets their card out, everyone fills it out, everyone picks a couple elders to sign it, and those elders are responsible to ensure that those directions are followed through in case of an accident like that. Yeah, it's gross and terrible, and I hate it. It is probably one of the worst aspects of the JW religion because it is actively allowing your child to die in cases that are easily prevented. Because, like, I mean, sure, you're in a car accident, you lost a lot of blood. That's very dangerous, but not receiving replacement blood right away to get your organs and your brain functioning again, that's even more dangerous. And yeah, I mean, I'm sorry that your friend died, and I'm sorry that you went through that. And it's happened to so many people, and it is gross. I really wish the United States would kind of they have it in a lot of cases, but it's still not like codified in law or anything like that because of religious freedom. But yeah, I really wish the United States would, like, or other countries, intercede on this more.
Why? Yeah, why? I mean, what do all the other, like, less crazy religions not want a slippery slope? They're willing to let JW kids die. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's called religious freedom. It's not that they want JW kids to die. It's that we have a First Amendment that protects religious liberty. And we haven't yet gotten to the point where we're willing to flatly point out and tell people, hey, your parents, that means you are stewards of those kids and you are not the owners of those kids, so that we can let folks know, hey, you need to provide them with food, healthcare, and healthcare includes the potential for treatment and blood transfusion. And yes, it includes vaccines. And oh, by the way, you shouldn't be hitting your kids, and you don't get to routinely circumcise them. Unfortunately, we currently live in a world where allowing parents their normative rights over their kids means that they can beat their kids, they can mutilate their kids, they can deny their kids health care. And it's not that people don't value that, it's that we legally can do nothing. So all I can keep doing is keep pointing out that your routine infant circumcision is mutilation, and that denying kids health care and food and education is abuse. And we have a duty to step in and save kids from their parents on occasion. But that does not play very well, because the overwhelming majority of parents are both loving and doing pretty good with their kids, but also the overwhelming majority of them are guilty of at least one of those things, if not merely just beating. As a matter of fact, Arden was telling me a show that she watched the other day. These kids sit down with their MAGA parents and they record the discussions about their lives. And they basically said something along the lines of, hey, we had a good life. We loved you guys. You did well and everything else. If there's one thing we could change about our upbringing, it would be that you never hit us with a belt. And evidently the parents were like, how dare you tell people we did that? You fucking did it. The fact that your reaction is, how dare you tell people, that means you fucking knew it was wrong, or now. I hope you're better. But if I ever have kids, nobody will lay a fucking hand on those kids. That doesn't mean they won't be punished. That doesn't mean they won't be disciplined, but you're not going to fucking hit them. Anyway.
Yeah. We do have, like what you mentioned there, is that parents, it is stewardship. It is care, and it should be care, and it should be giving this child the best future as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of parents, they seem to mistake stewardship with like ownership, and that, this is my child. I will raise them however I want. I will, do this or that as much as I want. I understand the legal problems of a government getting in there and saying, okay, we're going to determine what's best for this child or all children in the United States, and we're to disallow parents from doing this or that. I understand the sticky quagmire that can become, but there are some matters which have fallen on to it's up to the parents to decide of that line, because within reason, there's lots of Christian Scientist parents who are arrested and prosecuted because they were letting their children starve to death, or letting their children not have any medical attention. Very, very preventable illnesses that they just simply let run loose with their kids because they just won't get their kids vaccinated, or they won't bring their kids to the doctor to get antibiotics. So the courts will jump in on extreme circumstances and intercede. And the question is, where is that line where it is appropriate for the court to do that, where it's not appropriate for the court to do that? And unfortunately, blood transfusions in most cases for parents, it's state by state as well, falls on the side of the line of, well, it's up to the parents. And there are parents who do let their kids die. And to be clear, the parents aren't doing this. I would say an overwhelming majority of Jehovah's Witness parents are not doing this because they hate their kid or they want the kid to suffer or anything. They've been brainwashed by the Jehovah's Witness organization, and they believe that if my kid gets a blood transfusion, that's going to basically anger God so much that kid is either not going to receive everlasting life after Armageddon, or they're not going to receive everlasting life out of Armageddon after Armageddon. They think that by using blood transfusions to save the kid, they're ultimately giving up the kid's life, because the kid's going to be out of luck when it comes to whether or not they're brought into that paradise earth that they believe is going to happen. So they've been brainwashed to do this, and so they think that they are ultimately acting on the child's best interest in an ultimate sense. Let the child die now, because Jehovah will resurrect the child later on into paradise and reward them for being such good and faithful. That's why the magazine's entitled "Youths Who Put First," youths who put God first. So it's not maliciousness for most of these parents; it's them being brainwashed as well by the organization. And yeah, it's terrible. It needs to go away. I really wish that these types of things would be legally required. Like if a kid is dying in the hospital, everything should be done to save that life. And there shouldn't be things exempt from the list because of what the parents believe. But how we fix that, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of legal stuff in order to fix that, and a lot of questions to ask. And I understand, like I said, it's an issue of, okay, what does the state say about how parents should raise their kids? As Matt brought out earlier, that you can't do certain things legally, and I think denying this type of medical treatment should be absolutely one of those things. It should be illegal.
Yeah, it's insane how much privilege religion has. And because, every other part of the First Amendment, we have legal limits on it for when it causes more harm than good.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I do have experience. I also have some experience with several Christian Scientist adults who joined a youth group thing I was in, a Boy Scout thing I was in, and one of them did not send a friend of mine to see a doctor after he sprained his ankle, and his dad was just about ready to tear the guy's arms off.
Oh yeah, like that.
Found out.
Like, and that completely crosses another line. Like, that's no longer a Christian Scientist determining what's good for their kid. They're now determining what's good for another kid. And yeah, that's probably major lawsuit territory there. I'd be interested to see how that panned out. But yeah, and I think, like I said, I think that's one of the things. Like the witnesses and the witness religion, I would say it is dying a very slow death. I think probably within 100 years, the witnesses will be gone, or whatever remains won't be anything like what we have today. Just gotta keep on talking about it, keep on informing people about the dangers of the cult that is Jehovah's Witnesses, as well as Christian Science and others. And just do your best to keep people educated. So, but anyway, I think that's all I got to say about that. Is that satisfactory for you there, Ben?
Thanks, Eric. And I think it's important people know that it's the skipping birthdays and Halloween or whatever is nothing compared to the other harms they do.
Yeah. Actually, I mentioned that. I mentioned that on Wednesday about the social impact of being a Jehovah's Witness, especially growing up in public school. But yeah, that's like a minor thing when it comes to this type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's like so anathema to just the basic biological functioning of surviving and passing on your genes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's religion. Religion gets people to operate against their best interests, especially cults. Cults will do that. They will make you do exactly the opposite of what's best for you. And that's one thing I always say, that when I left, I'm 40. I'm almost 44. When I left when I was 27, my life drastically improved because my decisions started to be determined and informed by reason and logic and past experience, rather than, okay, I have a decision to make, I should pray about it, I should talk to an elder about it, I should do this or that. I went from very irrational processes that time and time again hurt me, hurt my family, hurt people I know. But we would all soothe our wounds by saying, oh, well, but we're doing this for God and Jehovah's going to bless us. I feel very blessed inside by Jehovah now. I know Joe's going to bless us in the future. Once you drop all that garbage and you start making decisions that, like I said, make sense, decisions that exercise your logic and your reasoning and your past experiences, my life, when I started doing that, drastically improved. Like just my health, my mental health, my financial situation, everything. So that's why it's important to fight against this, because you're not only getting people to have an irrational belief, you're equipping them for better decisions by helping them drop these broken tools, these ineffective methods, and adopting something better. So and that's why I do this, because I like helping people with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's great, and glad you made it out of it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate the conversation, and thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Ben. We've got a theist caller as our final caller for today. We got like 12 minutes left. Let's see. Yeah, that's what.
Sweet. Yeah, I didn't even see this person come in. So this is great. Hello, John from New Jersey. John's a theist, and John has a comment here. Answering the host challenge on premise that there's no reason to be a theist. It makes the most sense that the world has an intelligent designer. So, John, I wanted to say that I said that there's no good reason to be a theist, but we won't split that hair. We'll just go ahead and let you explain to us what you mean by this. So, hello, John. How are you doing?
Give us some good reasons.
Good evening. So, just first of all, I've seen Matt in a lot of stuff, and I know he's an incredible debater. I've never done this before in my life, and so just kind of set the stage on that. However,
okay, well, you just guaranteed that I'm not going to say anything. So, congrats.
And so it seems to me that this intelligent designer set up an environment for humans to continue to develop, and Christianity has been a solid kind of objective morality framework that not perfect, but has stood the test of time. That's pretty incredible. And I think in our current day and age, it's kind of holding a grassroots perspective on objective morality, that unborn life is indeed a growing, living human. And I think without that kind of theist kind of background, that might be hard to see. And so kind of let me leave it there for, get some response.
Well, you threw out a lot there. So are these your reasons to be a theist? Is because you observe objective morality?
Well, no, starting with what I said when I called in, that intelligent design, right, our world, it seems to be the most reasonable explanation of our world, that there's an intelligent designer. This didn't just come out kind of randomly. I've done a lot of science in my day, so to speak. And it just seems, wow, this is incredible, mind-blowing. I'm pretty sharp as far as science and studying, that type of thing in school. Did you
listen to our conversation with the previous John about the same thing?
I'm sorry, on and off, I was able to join. I did catch a fair amount of what you guys say, but I did not go through that. I apologize.
Okay, so why do you think that what you see is intelligently designed?
Looking at our body, creation of life, it just seems so much more. When I look at our pharmaceuticals, have the best brains in the world, and we're still trying to figure out, we're chasing our tails. We're not even close to inventing a human.
Can you look at something and get a feeling about it, and that feeling be wrong?
Of course, I think we're imperfect humans.
Okay, so that's not a reliable way to come to that conclusion. Would you agree?
No.
But you could be wrong about it, right?
Oh,
like you can look at something, have a feeling about it, and be wrong. In fact, I would say we probably do that roughly half the time. We make guesses about things and make intuition conclusions about things and end up being wrong about it. So that makes it an unreliable method to come to such conclusions, right?
Can I respond to that?
Well, respond to my question first. Going off of intuition.
I don't agree with you.
You don't agree with me? Okay. Please explain to me why, when I look at something and I'm wrong about it, doesn't demonstrate that that's an unreliable method.
Okay. Fair question. The possibility that you're wrong about something doesn't inherently identify the probability that when you make a judgment on something that you're likely to be wrong or right. In other words, if you saw a coin toss on heads, and let's say it wasn't a two-sided coin, it was a 100-sided coin, 99 heads, one tail, and you saw a tail, that doesn't mean that reliably guessing the other guess, I forget which way I even said it, but so your observation, we didn't get into the probability of you being right because you could be wrong.
All right, I'm not quite following there, John. Let me put it to you this way.
What's the
You have a-
probability
you-
you're right, John?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question.
What's the probability that you're right about an intelligent designer?
That's an interesting question. I think it seems highly probable.
Cool. I don't care if you think it seems highly probable. I need you to demonstrate that it's highly probable. Otherwise, you might as well just be saying you're absolutely certain, or you're 82% probable, or it's 16% probable. I need you to demonstrate how you know it's highly probable that you're right about an intelligent designer. Otherwise, you're just talking out of your ass.
How do you calculate probability, John?
I look at all the possibilities that I can kind of brainstorm, or I listen to a lot of others on all sides of an issue. I try not to live in an echo chamber.
You just completely screwed yourself, John, because what you were saying before about the mere fact that you could be wrong doesn't tell you how likely you are to be wrong. That's completely correct. But also, you'd have to acknowledge that you don't get to just look at what you think are the available options. What if there are options you're unaware of?
Yep, that's a possibility. It doesn't make
how do you determine how probable you are that you're correct if there are things that you acknowledge you don't know and don't know that you don't know?
That prevents me from being 100% certain. I would
No. I don't. No. John. I don't think you can be 100% certain about anything. I don't think that's possible. But this has nothing to do with whether or not you're 100% certain. You said you were highly probable, and when we're getting you to point out how you determined that it's highly probable, now you're acknowledging you have no way to determine probability, and so you are simultaneously saying it's highly probable you are correct, while acknowledging that you don't have a way to determine that it's highly probable that you're correct.
My judgment that it's highly probable is based on a lifetime of watching, observing human beings analyze various problems, tons and tons of problems.
John, that's not the way. John, that's not the way probability is calculated. That is by definition bias. Your sample set is not necessarily representative, or complete, or useful for determining probability.
What you're basically doing here, John, is
how many universes have you been able to explore to determine the probability that this universe is created?
I think that what we've observed about other universes, they're so freaking far that
John, you should stop. John, you should stop talking right now, because it's already embarrassing that you talked about doing a lot of science. There are no other universes. We have no other universes to explore. I think you meant galaxies.
Yeah.
But I said universes and you said universes. What other universe are you aware of that you could explore?
It's daunting to think about, much greater than our planet. And so that's where you want to go with this conversation.
John, is an intelligent designer much greater than our planet?
Yes.
Why isn't it too daunting for you to think about that instead of concluding that it's highly probable that you're correct?
I think both. I think that he's much bigger, much bigger than our planet, and much bigger, and has that design capability to make this happen.
The conflict here, John, is that you don't think God is too daunting of a proposition for you to reach a conclusion on. But when I ask you about the probability and what other universes you have the ability to explore, that is too daunting. Is God more daunting than other universes?
God more daunting than other universes? I would say they're all difficult for the human brain to comprehend.
Well, why are you then pretending that you can be strong, highly probable in your accuracy about an intelligent designer while refusing to discuss probabilities of universes that you can't explore?
I would say you're getting into unknown. And so there is a large unknown.
God known? Is God known?
It's the most probable explanation.
No, is
in my
God known?
opinion.
Is God
In
known?
my opinion.
John, if you keep fucking being dishonest, I'm going to keep interrupting you. Is God known? Yes or no?
No.
No. So then I'm not the one getting into unknowns. You're the one claiming that you are highly probably correct about something you acknowledge is unknown. And when we point out that this is irrational and try to get you to defend this, you want to say, oh, no, now you're getting into unknowns, Matt. No, sir. You're the one that got into unknowns. You're the one claiming high probability about unknowns. You are the one that has been irrational or fallacious at every position in this discussion. And now we have run out of time.
Yeah. So, John, what you've basically done here is you basically said, I can calculate the probability of rolling a 3 on this die. And with this die, I don't know how many sides it has, but I can tell you 3 is the most probable on this die that I have no idea how many sides are on. Like, this is directly analogous because we calculate probabilities by understanding how many times an instance occurs out of how many examples we have. And you can't do that with creation, quote unquote creation, and call it intelligent design, because we have one universe to examine and we don't know where that universe came from or anything else about that. You have nothing to study on this, and you're here telling us about probabilities. So what we do have get going, we're at 3 o'clock. Yeah, we are at 3 o'clock. So thank you for the call, John. Go ahead and drop you. You have a good afternoon. And that's it for the day. Yeah. Any closing thoughts, Matt? Anything you want to close out on?
Nope.
All righty.
Good show.
Well,
had fun.
Yeah. Good show. Thank you so much, Matt. And folks in the audience, thank you for participating. Thank you for the live chat. Very, very lively live chat. And yeah, again, catch us in a couple hours here back on this same channel. We're going to have the Sunday show after dark, and we're going to have Forrest Valkai and Justin from Deconstruction Zone. And I don't hear any music. This is such a boring outro. I am about to fall asleep here.
Wait, can you not hear it?
I cannot hear any music.
Mixing is wrong.
It is very awkward. There we go. All right. Now we have a proper sign off. Thanks, folks. Bye. We'll catch